Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 1 of What If the Transformers Crash Landed in Code Geass. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. The renewed revolution. It has been at least 2 weeks since the end of the conflict against the Autobots and Black Knights. With most of their forces destroyed, and what's left having gone into hiding, Planet Earth's newest self-proclaimed rulers are dead set in making this world into their new home. After the Decepticons' victory over the Britannian Empire, their leader Megatron had sent out a call to all other Decepticons scattered across the galaxy to come to Earth and help build up his new empire. Already, his forces have already grown twice as big as they were before. What was once a small army with a single warship, was now a small fleet with only currently 5 or 6 smaller vessels at the moment, led by the enormous vessel that would serve as the flagship for the growing Decepticon fleet, the Nemesis. Currently, the Nemesis hovered over what was once the Britannian capital known as Pendragon but has since been destroyed. At the moment, a new fortress was being constructed in its place, one that would be significantly larger and more imposing. But it looked as if construction had only just begun as worker-class Viacons, along with several unmanned construction vehicles continued to work. Said construction vehicles included a dump truck, a wheel loader, a bulldozer, a massive load shovel, a cargo crane, and a cement mixer truck. All of these vehicles had a near-identical green and purple paint job with a Decepticon insignia somewhere on their frame. From the bridge of the Nemesis, observing the construction of his fortress to be was the Decepticon leader himself, Megatron. He continued to observe with a sinister smile as the door opened behind him, revealing 2 more Decepticons as well as a human who chose to aid the Decepticons in overthrowing his own empire. Lord Megatron. Starscream began as he, Soundwave, and Schneisel all bowed to their leader. More Decepticon forces arrive each day. Our army continues to grow while what's left of Britannia is thrown into a state of complete chaos. As Starscream explained the situation to their leader, Soundwave's visor lit up to show a world map with several red dots all across the Britannian areas. All areas formerly under Britannian rule have become war zones as the previously overthrown governments have begun insurgency. What of the state with the remaining superpowers? Megatron asked. Once word got out of Pendragon's destruction, the EU wasted no time in attacking. Starscream reported. Currently, they are engaged with Euro-Britannia and have not yet made any attempts to attack the mainland. Schneisel, as the former Prime Minister of Britannia, do you believe we be concerned with Euro-Britannia? Megatron asked. I don't believe so, Lord Megatron. Schneisel responded. Despite being a subject of the original empire, they have made attempts to claim independence. So, I highly doubt they'll seek to avenge my father. That being said, perhaps we can negotiate with them for a more peaceful union between them and the Decepticon Empire and avoid any possible bloodshed. Perhaps. Megatron didn't seem all that concerned at the moment. What of the Chinese Federation? At the moment, no movement has come from the remaining superpower, my lord. Starscream reported. It could be possible that they are simply biding their time. If I may, Lord Megatron, the Chinese Federation is currently overseen by the High Eunuchs. Schneisel began. I've had the pleasure of negotiating with a few of them, and I can safely say they'd be more inclined to join us as opposed to fighting against us. Noted. Megatron acknowledged. But first, our priority is ensuring that Britannia is thoroughly uprooted. What of the Autobots or the remaining Black Knights, my lord? Schneisel asked. Starscream gave a scoff. The Black Knights are all but wiped out at this point. Without their precious Zero, they are nothing. Even with the aid of the Autobots, Prime only has a handful of soldiers at his disposal while our forces continue to grow. Eventually, he'll be too outmatched. Maybe so, but we must not underestimate Optimus. Megatron stated. But as I said, our first priority is removing this pitiful excuse for an empire off the face of the planet. Lord Megatron. One Viacon came running onto the bridge. A fleet of Britannian warships is inbound westward. As the Viacon made this report, Soundwave sought to confirm it by accessing the Nemesis controls to bring up a screen to show a large fleet of at least 10 destroyers, 7 carrier battleships, and a single aircraft carrier that appeared to be the flagship. It appears to be the Pacific Fleet. Schneisel acknowledged. They've actually organized a force relatively quicker than I'd expected. It's not just that, they appear to be led by the Knights of 1, 3, 4, and 6, along with their own personal forces, making up a total of 28 nightmares. The Viacon reported. Soundwave zoomed on the screen to show that the Pacific Fleet has just launched a small army of airborne nightmares, with the Galahad, Tristian, Mordred, and Palamedes in the lead. The Knights of the Round and their forces will be here in minutes, with the land forces to be deployed from the fleet right after. Starscream however snickered in amusement. Foolish humans. I shall deploy the Seeker Armada. That won't be necessary, Starscream. Megatron said with a grin. I believe it's time to show Britannia a taste of true Decepticon power. He accessed the comms. Onslaught, Mixmaster, I trust you can see the invaders by now. Assemble your teams and deal with these pests, will you? Before your forces attack Lord Megatron, allow me to personally speak with them. Schneisel proposed. Their resources could be instrumental to our cause. And if they decline, Megatron questioned, then we will crush them. Schneisel said with a menacing grin of his own. The army of airborne nightmares led by the Galahad advanced closer toward the construction site of the Decepticon fortress with the Nemesis hovering over it. All units, be on guard. Bismarck, who currently wore an eye patch over his left eye, advised the attack force. This is nothing like facing a resistance group or anything of the sort. The Decepticons cannot be underestimated. Understood. Anya Alstrheim replied, but this was not truly Anya, evident by the red rings in her eyes. This was in fact Marianne, currently in control of Anya's body. Roger that. Gino acknowledged with a serious expression. Though he had every intention of helping out Bismarck and the others in fighting the Decepticons, he also had plans to sneak away when the fighting was over and find a way to meet up with the Black Knights and the Autobots and hope they let him join. In hindsight, however, he probably should have gone with them back in Japan. Look at this. Look at this disgrace. Dorothea spat in disgust. These wretched aliens dare to attack our home. They dare to wipe it away and replace it with whatever monstrosity they're constructing. They have no right to do this to us. Rein it in, Ernst. Bismarck scolded. We must maintain our focus. He made contact with the command of the Pacific Fleet. Lohmeyer, we are approaching the target. Do not engage the enemy until we do. Understood, Sir Waldstein. Alicia Lohmeyer, a noblewoman of Britannia with fair skin, light brown hair, blue eyes and a pair of glasses, acknowledged as she stood with all the officers at the command deck of the Pacific Fleet's aircraft carrier. Lady Lohmeyer, we are receiving a transmission. The Knights of the Round appear to be receiving it as well. It appears to be from Prince Schneisel. One officer reported. Put it up. Lohmeyer ordered as an image appeared on the screen at the roof of the bridge, showing the image of Schneisel El Britannia, whom the Knights of the Round were also seeing. Hello Bismarck and company. Schneisel greeted. And, oh, Alicia, this is a surprise. I never took you for the type to actually be a part of a battle. Our empire is in jeopardy, and I must do my part to ensure its survival and prosperity. Alicia stated. I'm afraid that's quite out of the question. Schneisel began. Will you wake up, Schneisel? Gino exclaimed. You can still come back to us. You don't have to work for Megatron. Come back. Schneisel shook his head with slight amusement. I'm afraid you're quite mistaken, Gino. I wasn't forced into Megatron's service, but rather I choose it. What? Gino exclaimed as he, the other knights, and even Alicia from her ship, looked in absolute shock. The Decepticons certainly had the power to overthrow Britannia, even without my aid. Schneisel said. However, my assistance made it easier to override the capital's defenses, all but cementing their victory. You betrayed us. Anya exclaimed, with Marianne still in control. You sold out to Megatron. Let me ask you all something. Schneisel began. Why do people constantly fight each other? It's not just the conflicts that Britannia incited in the past, but all other ancient civilizations have known conflict. Ancient Greece, Egypt, and all other past empires have at least one major conflict set in their era. Why is that? It's because human instinct seeks conflict. It's not anybody's fault, that's just how it is. Under my father's rule, Britannia would have ultimately destroyed this planet and the human race with it. However, if there is a force out there that is far powerful than anything humanity has at its disposal, and if said force could establish order, then wouldn't it seem like the wisest course of action to join that force? That is what the Decepticons provide. order to a chaotic and self-destructive species. Under the rule of the Decepticons, there will be no conflict, no segregation among our race, all people of all origins shall be equal. You mean equally worthless, right? Gino asked with a slight glare. It's not ideal, but it's the best chance humanity has at survival. Schneisel replied. And you can all be a part of that as well. If you all stand down right now, submit to the rule of the Decepticons, I guarantee all your lives will be spared. How dare you? They all heard Alicia scream. You dare to betray your own empire. Your own father. Britannia is the light that will bring salvation to this earth. We are the ones who have the right to rule it. Not these alien abominations. We swore absolute loyalty to Charles Z. Britannia. Bismarck stated in defiance. Agreed. We'll never recognize this damned usurper who would destroy everything we've worked so hard to build. Dorothea added. Like how Britannia has attempted to do to every other nation in the world. Schneisel asked skeptically. You have our answer, Schneisel. Anya, with Marianne still in possession, answered. The answer is no. The traitorous prince gave a small sigh as a disappointed look crossed his face. So be it. I respected you all a great deal. Farewell. He signed off, allowing the operation to resume. This changes nothing, Bismarck stated. All units prepare to attack. Wait, what's going on down there? Gino asked as all Britannian units directed their attention toward the ground. All Viacons have long since departed, leaving on the 6 construction vehicles that rolled closer toward the approaching skybound nightmares at a faster rate than one would expect for vehicles of their classification. All 6 of them began to line up in a specific formation. At the front was the cement truck, with the large load shovel right behind it. On the load shovel's right was the cargo crane, with the bulldozer on the left. Behind the load shovel's left was the dump truck, and on the right parallel to it was the wheel loader. As they lined up, they all transformed, but not in a way that anyone would have expected. The vehicles didn't transform into robots, but rather into shapes that resembled crude and metallic body parts. Metal cords and trails connected to and from each of the smaller vehicles to the load shovel into center as they began to merge together. The dump truck and wheel loader took the form of legs just as the attaching cargo crane and bulldozer took the form of arm-like appendages, while the cement truck merged with the load shovel like a giant torso. Soon, the metallic behemoth began to stand up, taking the form of a hulking green humanoid machine with purple armor along its arms and chest, the Decepticon insignia clear on the center. Once it full stood up, a single black head emerged from the torso as its red optics shined brightly. Devastator, online, the construction combiner announced. Every Britannian pilot in the air, even the hardened knights of the round, looked beyond shocked, so much so that no words could accurately describe the looks on their faces save for circular eyes and dropped jaws. Some even felt a new wetness in their pants. Did they just combine? Gino exclaimed. What is that thing? Dorothea stuttered, but this proved to be her undoing as Devastator's right hand transformed into a large drill, which he thrust straight at the Palamedes that Dorothea was unable to block. It got me, already. Those would be her last words as the massive drill turned her nightmare into scrap. All units. Evasive maneuvers. Bismarck ordered as he, Marianne, and Gino were the first to fly away and gain some distance. You will not escape. Devastator shouted as his chest plate opened to reveal a large turbine-like device, which activated and created an enormous suction force that had already began to pull in several of the other nightmares. Pull out! Pull out! One pilot exclaimed desperately as they tried to fly against the force, only to end up crashing into each other, further derailing their flight path. We can't. Another pilot screamed as he, and 10 others were pulled into the device, which acted something like an oversized garbage disposal to slice, grind, and chop the nightmares, and the pilots inside. Oh my god. Gino looked in absolute terror as they saw half their forces get mulched in one stroke, smoke exploding out through Devastator's back as he got rid of the chopped up and dusted remains of the nightmares he swallowed up. His device shut down as his chest plate closed, turning to face the remaining Britannian forces. Who's next? Devastator said with a smirk. What in the name of the First Emperor is that? Alicia exclaimed as she and the rest of the officers aboard the Pacific Fleet's aircraft carrier saw Devastator transform near the shore, and already engage the Knights of the Round and their forces. Ma'am, a Decepticon vessel approaches. It appears to be a small dropship. One officer reported as they saw a small ship approach the fleet, no bigger than their smallest vessel. Well, what are you waiting for? Shoot it down, Alicia ordered. Already, the frontmost ships fired a series of missiles at the incoming craft. However, two smaller vehicles flew in from around the dropship's flanking positions. One was a dark blue helicopter, the other was a dark brown jet. Both vehicles fired a series of rapid-fire energon blasts to shoot down each and every missile before they made contact. What? Alicia exclaimed as she saw their attack fail. The helicopter and jet met above the dropship as they revealed themselves to be Decepticons, but not just any Decepticons, they were two of the 5-con team known as the Combaticons, Vortex and Blast Off. The dropship's main door opened to reveal the remaining three, the big hulking green one on the left known as Brawl, the slightly smaller, light tannish brown-colored one on the right was called Swindle, and their leader, that was a darker green and gray-colored Decepticon of slightly heavy build known as Onslaught. It's time to show these humans what real power looks like, Onslaught stated. Combaticons, combined into Bruticus. All 5 leapt off the dropship as they transformed and began to combine themselves. Swindle and Brawl transformed into the right and left legs respectively just as Onslaught turned into the torso to link up with them. Vortex and Blast Off flew from the left and right sides to merge and transform into the arms just as a single head unit merged from the torso, revealing the Combaticon combiner that had just landed waist deep into the water. Bruticus online. Though Bruticus was only slightly smaller than Devastator, he was nonetheless imposing, which caused every single Britannian soldier in the entire Pacific Fleet to stop in their tracks as they saw the massive figure that was marching its way toward them. Open fire, open fire. Alicia screamed in fury. All ships, open fire on that monstrosity. Every single warship in the fleet fired its missiles straight at Bruticus, but he seemed ready for even this as he threw out his left arm, the helicopter blades shifting downward slightly and spinning rapidly like a makeshift shield to block all the missiles with no damage to himself whatsoever. My turn, Bruticus stated as he shot his right arm forward to unleash a massive flamethrower which had already engulfed the 3 ships in front of him. It took seconds before the ships exploded, allowing Bruticus to proceed forward, bashing and crushing all the ships that got close to him with little effort. He even used his helicopter blades to slice through some of the vessels, as well as picked up one carrier battleship with both his hands and threw it toward another carrier and 2 destroyers, destroying all 4 in an instant. Already half the fleet had been destroyed. Deploy all portmen, one officer ordered. Try and get underneath it. But it was too late. Even if they had deployed any of their aquatic nightmares, Bruticus had lifted his right arm up high before slamming it through the water and onto the ocean floor, unleashing a sonic pain wave attack that sent a tremor to obliterate all the nightmares, carving a line through the ocean itself and obliterating 5 more vessels. Is that all you got? Bruticus challenged as he picked up another destroyer ship and lifted it over his head to rip it in half and throw one half at another destroyer and the final carrier, taking down both with destructive results. Our entire fleet is lost. One officer exclaimed as the only vessel that remained at this point was the lead aircraft carrier. We have to pull back. Lady Lohmeyer, we must retreat. However, Alicia didn't appear to process these distressed cries from her men as she only looked in pure shock and fear at what had just happened. The Britannian Navy was one of the most powerful branches of the Empire's military, a true symbol of the might of Britannia. And yet, it had fallen apart in a time span of 5 minutes. This can't be. No, we can't, Alicia stuttered only for her and the entire crew to trip and fall as the entire ship shook. They looked in clear terror to see the source of the shaking came from Bruticus himself who had climbed up onto the aircraft carrier and walked along its deck. Several soldiers and smaller turrets tried with futility to stop his advance by shooting at the massive combiner, but it didn't even slow him down as he made his way to the command tower aboard the ship. He glanced directly into the window of the bridge to see the terrified faces of Alicia and her entire crew. Peek-a-boo, I see you, Bruticus sang as he aimed his flamethrower. No, you can't do this. We're Britannian. You can't. Alicia screamed her final words as Bruticus unleashed the deadly inferno to consume all human life in the control center before the whole thing exploded. No way, that was the fleet. Gino exclaimed as he flew above to dodge Devastator's swing. And it wasn't just the fleet, The knights and their forces were severely losing as well as most of their personal forces had already been lost, leaving only a select few with Gino, Marianne, and Bismarck left. Marianne led the remaining flying nightmares straight for Devastator as they fired all their missiles, with the Mordred firing its hadron cannons at the giant. Though the attacks hit, Devastator didn't appear the least bit affected. "Hey, tickled," Devastator mocked before swinging his right arm with such speed that even though Marianne was able to pull up with the Mordred, her escorts weren't so lucky as they were destroyed in an instant. "Hey, over here." Gino pulled out the Tristian's MVS blades and shot directly at Enormous Combiner's head, but Devastator reacted too quickly as he thrusted his drill hand directly at the Tristian, who not only tried to pull up his blades, but even activated the Blaze Luminous system at full power to try and shield himself. But Devastator's drill all but obliterated the defenses and sent the Tristian falling and crashing straight toward the ground, leaving a trail as the nightmare skidded to an inoperable halt. "Vile monstrosity," Bismarck exclaimed as he threw off his eye patch, revealing the Geass emblem in his left eye. "I swore to fight for this empire till my last, and I will not be bested by something like you." The Galahad drew its massive MVS and shot toward Devastator, who attempted to thrust its drill arm at him, only for Bismarck to fly over and around to slice at Devastator's face before flying past him. This didn't damage Devastator that much, but it did annoy him. "Human pest," the Combiner stated as he tried to reach out for the Galahad, only to see the nightmare fly above his arm, slash at it repeatedly before flying past him. Marianne was about to move in an attack when the Galahad blocked the Mordred's path. "My lady, please, allow me to handle this." "Very well, he's all yours." Marianne flew back as she continued to watch the Galahad face off against Devastator. Very few have actually managed to survive Bismarck while he uses his Geass, and the only one to ever trip him up with it was that wretched Optimus Prime. But I'm willing to bet this machine isn't as smart as he is. The Galahad flew under Devastator to try and slash at his legs, but when the Constructicon Combiner lifted his right foot to stomp on him, Bismarck saw it coming with his Geass and flew away to fly behind Devastator and slice at his back before flying above him. "Annoying bug," Devastator exclaimed as he was growing more and more irritated. "This is what you get for underestimating us humans," Bismarck said with a smirk as he flew on the attack, confident in his own abilities. Back on the Nemesis bridge, Megatron only looked more amused than before as he saw the fight play out. So, VV did indeed grant a Geass to the Knight of One. The ability to see the future must be quite an extraordinary gift. A sinister smirk fell on the Decepticon leader's face. "Unfortunately for him, we've managed to develop our own counter." He glanced toward Soundwave, who nodded as his visor lit up to show he was sending a binary signal wirelessly toward Devastator, issuing a command. Devastator missed with his drill slice again as Bismarck flew above him. However, his frustration gave way to understanding as he received Soundwave's message. Acknowledged. Activating Geass Canceller. Both of Devastator's optics turned from red to green as a bright green symbol that looked like an upside-down Geass emblem lit up. From Devastator's point of view, his targeting system locked onto the Galahad as he fired a green energy beam from his optics that Bismarck was unable to avoid. "What?" Bismarck exclaimed as the Galahad was struck, and Bismarck inside was engulfed in a brief flash of green light. With that, the red Geass emblem in his left eye had vanished. The power was still present, but it had been deactivated, probably for the first time in years. No, why can't? Tried as he might, Bismarck was no longer able to see the future. "I can't see, how can?" Suddenly his whole nightmare shook violently as Devastator had grabbed the Galahad in its left hand. "Bismarck." Marianne tried to fly in and help. "No, stay back," he shouted, daring not to speak her name lest Megatron find out. "They neutralized my power. I can't see." With Anya's eyes, her pupils shrunk as Marianne couldn't believe what she just heard. "They can negate a Geass. I heard the Order was developing it, but I never thought that." "You must live," Bismarck exclaimed as Devastator began to squeeze. "You cannot allow them to succeed. You must." He was already being crushed by the compacting metal as Devastator squeezed harder. "All hail Megatron," Devastator exclaimed as he finally crushed the Galahad. "I failed you, Lady Marianne." Those were Bismarck's last words before he was completely crushed within Devastator's grip. And with that, Marianne was the only remaining Britannian pilot left. They had assembled a large force with some of their strongest pilots and most of their navy, but the Decepticons crushed it in less than an hour. Everything they've worked so hard to build, was it really all about to go up in flames? Marianne's state of shock had left her vulnerable for Devastator to smack the Mordred out of the air, its heavy armor taking most of the impact as it crashed onto the ground, a short distance away from the inoperable Tristian as Gino had already climbed out. "Anya!" Gino exclaimed as he ran toward the ruined Nightmare to try and help his fellow knight. He manually opened the cockpit, which could only open slightly as it was too badly damaged, but it was just enough to pull out Anya's body which Marianne was still controlling. However, before they could do anything else, they heard the soaring sounds of fighter jets as Starscream and several Seeker Vehicons flew down in their jet modes before transforming to land on the ground and point their energon blasters at the pair, all save for the smirking head of the Seekers. Well, look what we have here. Starscream snickered. Probably the only two survivors of the Knights of the Round. He mocked as Gino and Anya both glared. What was it you've always said about Britannia being the most powerful? What's that? I'm afraid I cannot hear you over the sound of your humiliating defeat and the screams of your now dead comrades. Starscream laughed. Why you? Gino was about to lash out, but he felt his arm being grabbed as Anya looked at him with a serious expression. Maybe we should play along for now, at least till we get a chance to find a way out. What? Anya, you can't. Gino, for once in your life, think. Anya scolded, much to Gino's surprise. Our forces have been wiped out, our nightmares don't work, there's nothing we can do. All we can do right now, is play along and hope an opportunity presents itself, unless you want to get gunned down right here and now. Gino looked toward Anya in confusion. He never thought she was the type to come up with something like this. If he didn't know any better, he'd say he was talking to a completely different person. But, at the same time, he knew she was right. They can't do anything else besides submit and hope they get a chance to escape soon. Damn, I should have gone with Colin back in Japan. Gino thought with a scowl before he lowered himself to his knees along with Anya. We surrender and submit ourselves to the Decepticons. Wise choice. Starscream smirked. Back on the bridge of the Nemesis, Megatron gave a slight laugh as he had watched the skirmish come to an end alongside his silent cohort, Soundwave. Well, that was certainly entertaining. The Decepticon leader mused. Soundwave, begin organizing our forces. Have most of them concentrated under my command to lead the conquest of the main continent, and deploy all remaining units to the Britannian areas. I'll leave the organization of them, and any new contacts that arrive, entirely to you. I trust you can handle that. Soundwave nodded in confirmation. Good. Megatron smiled evilly. Earth is ours now, we shall prove that by wiping Britannia off the map. Humankind has no idea what lies ahead for them. Unknown location, Geass Order Headquarters. What is this place? General Bartley exclaimed as he and the rest of the scientists in Code R, including Joseph Finette, stood in front of a thought elevator, with Shockwave and Thundercracker, along with VV, standing in front of them. This is the source of the power that you and Clovis were studying, General Bartley. Shockwave answered. You attempted to harness CC's power for your late prince in an attempt to secure him on the throne, unaware of what you were tampering with. Seeing how you've worked closely with Geass, you and your team will be working with us from now on. VV added. You're really the only logical choice. I may be only here part-time. Thundercracker said to Shockwave specifically. Or remotely. I'm still a Seeker and Lord Megatron may have plans for me, as well as Knockout. Logical. Shockwave nodded in understanding before turning to the human scientists in front of him. Though we have sufficient personnel who can attribute to our studies here. Before Bartley could ask who he was referring to, a ground bridge portal opened up behind him as Knockout's vehicle mode drove in and toward the head scientist. We're back and we brought the guy you were looking for. A real basket case this guy. Knockout's doors opened to reveal two men. One was a bald, dark-skinned, well-built man wearing a dark suit which bore the insignia of the Decepticons on its chest, along with a pair of prosthetic red eyes. The second was a Caucasian male with white hair with a white lab coat, a robotic right arm, and his entire forehead appeared to be mechanical. Bartley recognized both of them. Colonel Mad, he looked at the man with prosthetic eyes. You're alive. I heard you died in battle. Well, not completely dead. Mads said. I did lose both my eyes and most of my insides, but the Emperor and VV found me and brought me here. I've been with the Geass Order ever since. The shocked Bartley looked toward the other man. Dr. Arkeville. You were imprisoned in the homeland's most secure asylum. You were deemed insane. Arkeville gave a maniacal chuckle. Yeah, they did. But I got a get out of the nuthouse free card thanks to the cons when they took down the Emperor. Mad has been instrumental to our order for many years. VV explained. And despite his mental instability, Arkeville was widely regarded as the greatest mind the Empire has ever produced. Already, I was able to develop a Geass Chancellor. Shockwave stated. But, of course with all your assistance, and further time, tremendous advances in research is inevitable. Thundercracker and Knockout will be working between scientific endeavors and military operations, but every single one of you here will be confined to the Geass Order with myself, and everything you create will be for the purpose of furthering the Decepticon cause. Bartley didn't even bother to hide his fear, as did the rest of the scientists, particularly Joseph Finette as he held in his pocket the locket that contained a photo of his wife and daughter. Not long after the failed insurgents conducted by the Knights of the Round and the Pacific Fleet, the Decepticons began their campaign to completely uproot the remnants of the Britannia Empire. The Constructicons remained at the capital of the city that would be soon named Newtown to finish construction along with the fortress that would serve their leader, Darkmount. Megatron personally led the conquest of the Britannian homeland. With the intelligence of Soundwave, Onslaught, and Schneisel, as well as the raw power of the Decepticon forces. Air superiority being led by Starscream and the Seekers, and the additional force of Bruticus and all other ground-based Decepticons, the entire continent had been conquered in a time span of 2 weeks with little resistance. With the death of the Emperor and most of the Imperial family and Knights of the Round either captured or killed, there was no real leadership as the Empire fell into chaos. Some nobles and other royals attempted to escape into the colonized areas that Britannia had conquered, but this only served the Decepticons even greater as it further divided their forces, and the areas were already facing insurrections themselves from the natives of the areas. More and more Decepticons arrived each day as Soundwave and Megatron helped to coordinate and disperse them properly to each and every area to see to its downfall. Area 18. Starscream led the Seeker Armada alongside Thundercracker and Skywarp across the desert, laying down fire of Energon blasters and missiles onto a line of Britannian Sutherlands, resulting in their complete obliteration. This gave way to Middle Eastern rebels and resistance groups to drive in via all-terrain vehicles with guns and turrets to push even further. At the back of the failing Britannian military line, guarded by several other Sutherlands, was the mobile base piloted by the current Viceroy of Area 18 appointed after Cornelia's conquest, Duke Calairs. Though that may not be the case for long. The entire northern unit has been wiped out. One panicking officer reported. We've lost contact with the capital. Insurrection groups have taken the city. Keep fighting, Calairs exclaimed. We're servants of Britannia. We will not fall. Lord Calairs, incoming enemy unit. What? He looked at the screen to see a single fighter jet of purple and teal-colored variety, with a Decepticon insignia on its wing. Concentrate all firepower on that unit. Shoot it down. But it was too late. The Seeker had fired a total of 4 missiles that shot out even faster than anyone could hope to track. Calairs didn't have time to scream as the missiles hit the mobile base, destroying it along with the guarding Sutherlands. Once that was all done, the Seeker in question flew back to rendezvous with Starscream and his team, along with other Seeker Viacons and the leadership of the Middle Eastern rebels. She transformed to reveal herself a female Seeker with similar build to Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp, only with her paint job being that of purple and teal. Ah, Slipstream, I trust you were successful. Starscream said with a smile. Calairs is dead, Slipstream smirked. And with him, Area 18 has fallen. This resulted in cheers from all the rebels. Thank you, their leader said to the Decepticons. You have freed us. Oh, I wouldn't say, free. Slipstream's smirk only grew. More like, under new management. She fired an energon blast from her arm to kill the leader of the resistance, with the other Seekers following suit against the remaining rebels. Area 6. The state of the Amazon jungle could only be described as that of a war zone as a horde of Insecticons either flew down to pelt Britannian nightmares and infantry with laser fire, or charged straight through the jungle, bashing away every try and living creature they came across to rip and tear the Britannian forces apart with their claws and teeth. Among those flying appeared to be a giant red metallic insect resembling something of an oversized ladybug before she transformed on the ground in front of a pair of Sutherlands and revealed herself to be the female Insecticon known as Glowstrike. She opened fire with a series of energon blasts from her palms to obliterate the nightmares. Along her right, coming out of the jungle was a massive mechanical scorpion with an orange-colored paint job. He lunged at an incoming Sutherland before thrusting his tail into the cockpit to kill the pilot inside before transforming to reveal himself to be Scorponic. At the same time, a massive robotic rhinoceros beetle flew toward a trio of Sutherlands before transforming to reveal himself as another Insecticon by the name of Saberhorn. Tally-ho! Saberhorn stated as he drew a pair of swords to cut down one Sutherland before using both to block the harkins of the remaining two before coming in to cut down both with relative ease. Meanwhile, at the military base within the center of the jungle, all the officers were desperately trying to control the situation. South Brigade lost. Enemies enclosing. Our forces are down to 10%. At the command chair sat a middle-aged woman with pinkish hair that strongly resembled Euphemia and Cornelia. She sat with a rage-filled scowl on her face as all she could get was how much of a losing battle this was. "Hold your ground," she exclaimed. "We will not." However, she was interrupted by the sound of a drilling-like noise coming from above before the whole roof collapsed. When the dust settled, most of the personnel inside were dead, save for the woman in command as she felt debris pin her broken body to the ground, the sunlight from outside beaming down to blind her somewhat as a metallic figure loomed over her. Victoria Lee Britannia. The figure addressed, consort to the late Charles Z. Britannia, and the mother of Cornelia and Euphemia. The figure speaking was none other than Arachnid, who had undergone quite a change. Her spider legs were all repaired, but her right face was covered with a metallic patch, and her whole right arm was replaced with a new one that had a large hook-like appendage for a hand. "You know, your daughters were quite a pain for me, both figuratively and literally," Arachnid said with a scowl as she loomed over Victoria. "You wouldn't happen to know where they are, would you?" Victoria scowled. "Go to hell, Decepticon. You first," the disfigured Spider-Con said with a hiss before she slashed with her hook to butcher Victoria, ending her life in literal bloody fashion. "My, how ruthless." Arachnid looked up to see Saberhorn, Glowstrike, and Scorponic standing around the hole she had made. "Not very sporting, but ruthless," Saberhorn said as Arachnid climbed out. "It's done. Area 6 has fallen," Arachnid said before walking away as her fellow Insecticons looked toward her with concern. "She's growing more reckless and unstable every day," Glowstrike stated. "Honestly, it's a miracle she hasn't gone rogue again. She's driven by revenge, which I can personally respect," Scorponic acknowledged. "I certainly hope she finds who she's looking for," Saberhorn said. "It may lead us to these Black Knights I've heard so much about. They may actually prove to be a challenge. Area 9. It may be a literal uphill battle against these Decepticons as they pushed up the mountain against the Britannian nightmares suited for this terrain, but this particular group wouldn't have it any other way." A black police car in the lead shot forward as it transformed to reveal the Decepticon barricade who punched down one Sutherland before lifting the one next to it and throwing it down the slope to fall down the mountain's side. "I punched your hole. Squadron X, move in," Barricade ordered his team. 4 ground vehicles shot their way up the mountain, past the hole that Barricade had punched through and into the innermost defenses of the base built into the mountain. 2 of these vehicles appeared to be Cybertronian tanks, one was dark blue and the other was a vibrant light purple. In the middle was a light blue excavator, and along the side was a fast-moving anti-aircraft tank. As they literally pushed and blasted their way through the nightmares and reached the center of the base, they transformed to reveal themselves as the hulking Decepticons known as Quake, Overload, Demolisher, and Ground Pounder. "Time to bring the heat," Ground Pounder stated as his fist lit on fire before throwing out a punch to demolish a group of 3 Sutherlands in one hit. Quake fired with a series of explosive energon shotgun-like blasts to take down 4 more incoming Sutherlands while Overload casually walked up to a group of 5 Sutherlands that shot at him, but the bullets did little to damage his body. Please, keep your rousing applause until after the show is complete," Overload said somewhat dramatically before rushing the Sutherlands to crush them with only a series of punches. Demolisher's shoulders fired a series of rapid-fire energon blasts that tore through 6 enemy Sutherlands like tissue paper. Seeing how they stood no chance of winning, the remaining Britannian personnel had already evacuated to air transport and were ready to leave, only to be gunned down from the sky by an incoming helicopter. 3 of them were already shot down, with the last one about to escape, but the helicopter transformed to reveal itself as the Decepticon Blackout, who fell above the transport to crush it over his enormous weight before landing on his 2 feet. Once these 5 were finished demolishing the Britannian forces, Barricade joined up with his team, alongside a small forklift that transformed into an elderly-looking mini-con. "Ah, ya bums, that was 6 seconds away from a record." Headlock criticized. "Work harder." Barricade shook his head with an annoyed sigh as he accessed the comms. "Ground forces neutralized, take down the command center," he said as he glanced toward the top of a nearby mountain. Inside the base of said mountain, in a familiar situation, all the officers were panicking as the twin Britannian princes Castor and Pollux Rui Britannia tried to get command established. "All our forces have been wiped out. Ready our nightmares," Castor ordered. "Your Highness, you can't seriously think about going out there." "Our course we're serious," Pollux exclaimed. "If we're going down fighting." However, the roof shook before it was torn off completely to reveal 2 large Decepticons who used their strength to rip off the entire side of the mountain top to glare at the Britannians in question. One Decepticon had a smaller build with tan-colored metal and a cold emotionless face that was light purple, while the other was a massive gray-green Cyclops-like Decepticon, evident by his single red optic. "Castor and Pollux Rui Britannia," Blitzwing said in a cold emotionless voice before his face shifted to reveal a new red one with a V-shaped visor before speaking in a harsher tone. "Your forces are torn to pieces. If you don't wish to join them, you'll keep your mouth shut." His face changed yet again to reveal a black face with a more chaotic expression. "Ah, isn't that cute? They're twins. What do you want from us?" Castor questioned. "Our master demands your presence," Lugnut stated. "He knows of your Geass abilities granted by VV, which is why he has ordered us to capture you." That caused the twins to look in surprise as their respective Geass activated to reveal emblems in both their eyes. "You are to be detained alive." Blitzwing spoke in his emotionless tone again. "I'd advise you both to cooperate. Now put your hands over your heads." Seeing as they had no alternative, Castor and Pollux raised their hands in defeat. "We surrender." Pollux resigned. "For the glory of Megatron," Lugnut shouted to the heavens. Area 15. This colonized area consisted of a series of small islands, which appeared to be guarded by a series of Britannian battleships, albeit small ones as most of the Pacific Fleet had been wiped out after the failed attack on Megatron, but it still seemed a considerable defense with a series of Portland Nightmares patrolling underwater. "No enemies detected yet, my lady," one officer at the command ship told the oldest of the Imperial consorts, Anticlea EU Britannia, who looked about as old as the late Charles was, but her eyes still carried a resisting fire. "Keep your eyes peeled," Anticlea ordered. "Most of our empire has fallen, but I will not let this area become the next target of Decepticon conquest." "My lady, 1 our vessel's been taken down." "What?" she exclaimed as they saw the furthest ship beginning to sink. "What happened? Are we under attack?" "My lady, there's something down here," one of the Portman pilots exclaimed over the comms. "It's moving fast." It cut off to static. "I can't see it. What's going on?" One by one all the underwater nightmares were taken offline as each of the vessels began to sink. "What is going on down there? Someone get me an answer," Anticlea exclaimed as most of her forces were already appearing crippled. "My lady, we're receiving reports of no casualties," an officer reported, sounding more than a little confused himself. "Excuse me?" Anticlea questioned. "My lady, I see it," the final portal pilot exclaimed over the radio. It's a shark. A giant shark. Like all the others." It cut off to static. "Did he just say, a shark?" Anticlea questioned again in confusion before the entire vessel rocked again. "What happened?" "We've been hit. Something struck the ship's underbelly." Right outside, something large burst through the deck of the command ship, which was revealed to be a giant mechanical shark, with a blue and yellow paint job. Said robotic shark hovered in the air briefly before it transformed to reveal a Cybertronian with a claw-like appendage on its right hand. It tore open the bridge's roof of the command center. Anticlea EU Britannia, I presume. Who are you, Decepticon? She questioned with a glare. You can call me Skybite. The Sharkticon introduced. I'm also the one who just took down your entire fleet. But don't worry, everyone is alive, including your nightmare pilots. So I'll accept your surrender now. You honestly expect me to surrender? Pretty much. Skybite shrugged. Look at it this way, your empire is one step away from completely folding and there are much worse cons than me out there, so be glad that I don't like to kill all that much. Surrender, and you'll live. I'm a shark of my word. If you don't, well let's just say I can't make any guarantees with what my other cohorts might do to you. Seeing as she had no choice in the matter, all Anticlea could do was fall to her knees in defeat. Long had she been in denial, but she could no longer refuse the facts. Britannia's time was coming to an end. I surrender. Good move. Skybite smiled. Area 24. The capital of the settlement was completely under siege from the Decepticon forces personally led by Bruticus, tearing through any and all defenses that tried to stand in their way. Currently, explosions could even be seen in the distance as the floating aircraft carrier known as the Granberry flew away as fast as it could, while also appearing invisible to the naked eye. Toto, are you sure this cloaking will keep us hidden? Maribel asked the operator of their airship as they continued to fly away. Yes, Your Majesty. Toto Thompson, a young dark-skinned woman who was at the controls for their ship. Maribel nodded with understanding as she accessed the communications to see the footage of her general and tactical advisor, Johann Schwarzer, who appeared to be in the main military base back in the settlement, his face half covered in blood as it looked like he went through hell. We should be at safe distance soon, General Schwarzer. Aldrin Zevon, a young woman with blonde hair and green eyes said as she stood at Maribel's side. Good. Johann said with relief as the sounds of battle could be heard from his end. Our forces are all but wiped out, but I'll keep them busy as long as I can. Among those gathered on the ship's bridge were also the remainder of the Glinda Knights, and it was clear to many of them that they were against this plan. But we could have stayed and helped you. Leonhard Steiner exclaimed. You know he's right, Johann. We're some of the best pilots in the Empire and you're having us run. Makira Sorasi also shouted. No, we've discussed this. Your priority is to protect Princess Maribel, who may very well be the last Britannian royal who remains free. Johann exclaimed back. But, General, Sokia Sherpa also tried to protest but felt a gentle touch on her shoulder coming from Tink Lockhart as he looked up at the general for what he felt would be the last time. We understand, and we will protect her to the last, General. It's been an honor. Tink saluted, as did the rest of the Glinda Knights, many of whom were beginning to show tears. Even Maribel stood up to salute her general, doing her best not to cry. Give them hell, General. Maribel chalked. Johann chuckled as the room he was in rocked with the sounds of battle coming closer. Good luck, to all of you. Goodbye. The transmission cut off as Maribel sank back in her throne again. Meanwhile, inside the control room of the base, the roof had been blown off as a trio of helicopter Viacons flew down and transformed to surround Johann as he continued to sit in his chair, not even remotely intimidated by the gigantic aliens that surrounded him. You put up quite a fight, for a meatbag. One Viacon said mockingly. This only resulted in Johann laughing out loud. What, you think this is funny? You're quite pathetic. Pathetic, am I? Johann chuckled. This coming from a soulless machine. Of course, it's damn funny. The Viacon scowled, but once he and his companions looked around the room, they looked in shock to find that the whole place had been wired with explosives. And more than likely, the entire facility was wired to blow as well, and the one who held the trigger was Johann himself. Goodbye, Maribel Mel Britannia. May you avenge your mother and sister someday. Johann made his final remarks. Put down the switch. The Viacon exclaimed as he and his men tried to shoot their energon blasts at him, but the wounded general still barely ducked out of the way as he scowled. Never. I don't take orders from monsters like you, he stated before pushing the trigger. Boom. Asterisk. The entire base exploded, killing not only those three Viacons, but all the others that had surrounded the base. Even Bruticus was slightly blown back by the shockwave but was nonetheless still standing. HMMP, cute. Bruticus brushed off. The Glinda Knights didn't need to read the alert from the Granberries' computers to know what had just happened. Maribel had already covered her mouth with her hand as she let her tears fall, mourning the loss of her general and friend. As she cried, she felt an embrace from the side and turned to see it was coming from her childhood friend Uldren, who also had tears in her eyes, yet carried a determined expression. "We'll make sure it wasn't for nothing," Uldren told her princess. "All of us." Maribel glanced up slightly to see Toto, Leonhardt, Tink, Marika, and Sokia all standing before her and saluting her, showing that no matter what, none of them would leave her side. They were her knights, her teammates, her friends. This was enough for her to wipe the tears from her eyes as she stood up with a fiery look in her eyes. "Thank you, all of you." 6 months later, the Holy Empire of Britannia, which once stood for over 2 centuries, was no more. The entire homeland had been completely overthrown by the Decepticons that have increased exponentially. Where once stood Pendragon was now the citadel known as New Kaun, with the massive fortress of Darkmount at the very center. All the occupied areas of Britannia have likewise been overthrown. The entire Britannian population, as well as those that were considered the numbers, have been thoroughly enslaved. All rights were stripped away from the people completely, as they were all forced into slave labor and were provided food only when necessary. Euro-Britannia, at the moment, had remained untouched by the Decepticons as they still continued to wage war against the EU, have not yet received any Decepticon aid either. The Chinese Federation had likewise ceased any expansion as well, choosing instead to wait and be approached by an ambassador from the Decepticons to come so they could talk about a possible joining. But nobody ever dared to act out against the Decepticons, despite the obvious violation of human rights they have inflicted upon the Britannians and natives to the conquered areas, mostly out of fear. If the Decepticons could completely uproot the Britannian Empire in half a year at most, just imagine what they could do to everything else now that they have a full-fledged fleet that was about as big as their army. Out of all the nations the Decepticons have conquered, aside from Britannia itself, the one that appeared to have come out the worst was Japan. Even under Britannian subjugation, there were still vibrant cities, but now, the Tokyo settlement, and all major cities across the country, were in near ruins. Suffice to say, one could mistake the entire nation for a single ghetto, as every man, woman, and child who lived in the country, Britannian, Japanese, or otherwise, was now a slave to the Decepticon regime, forced to work in the energon mines that laid underground across the nation. The largest of these mines was Mount Fuji itself. Britannia lacked the advancements to thoroughly strip the mountain of its sakuradite energon deposits, but the Decepticons' more advanced technology offered no such limits. The population of those that worked in the mine was a little more than 1 million total. Their jobs included manual labor such as gathering and transporting energon crystals, or even operating machinery that served for excavation. To say it was grueling was an understatement. People practically lived in the mines and worked on a very strict schedule, taking only the bare minimum of breaks and being allowed the same amount of food and water, and sleeping for exactly 8 hours before resuming their work. One could say they were being worked to death, but that was not the case. The Decepticons in command of the mine made the effort to ensure that nobody was worked to death, not out of compassion, but efficiency. They needed living slaves after all. But of course, that didn't mean they weren't above dealing punishments should anyone step out of line. But then again, who would when your slavers are giant alien robots? It was not just civilians who were enslaved, but even former rebels and soldiers of the now fallen Britannia Empire. One such soldier was the sole survivor of the Glaston Knights, Gilbert G. P. Guilford, who was but a shadow of his former self. Gone were his military clothes. Now he wore the same kind of tattered rags that every other slave currently wore. His hair was ragged and unclean, he'd already grown a small and messy beard, and his body wasn't what it used to be. Guilford pushed a cart of energon crystals down a trail using physical strength alone. He heard the cracking of an electric whip from the Viacon that was closest. "Brake!" the Viacon ordered, prompting Guilford to stop pushing and fall on his hands and knees to catch a break. How did it come to this? He asked himself that question almost every day. He had lost many friends in the military when the Decepticons invaded. He also lost his home, his ranking, his body was on the verge of falling apart. The people he'd sworn to protect were enslaved, and he had failed the one person who meant more to him than anything else. "Forgive me, Princess Cornelia," he muttered himself that almost every day as well, as if it were his mantra. But just because his body was broken didn't mean his spirit was. He had been secretly working with a small group to try and stage a rebellion to free the slaves. Though he only recently met his supposed cohorts, a former crime lord who chose to go under his alias, the Black King, a noblewoman of the Statfeld family, and another noblewoman of the downgraded Ashford family. These weren't the type of people he'd thought to stage a revolt, especially considering the two noblewomen still had discriminatory views regarding the 11s, which only frustrated Guilford. Why should that matter when they're all in the same nightmare? Still, he got them to agree to help him. Now they just had to plan and organize their revolt, and to do it carefully. Suddenly, there was a loud chime that echoed throughout the large chamber, getting the attention of every slave present, as well as the Viacon guards. Everyone directed their eyes toward a large screen at the top of the chamber that had the Decepticon emblem on it before it came to life, showing a large blue Decepticon with large antler-shaped additions on his head. "EYY all you meatbags, it's your boss Thunderhoof. You know, the guy in charge of this mine and making sure you all got plenty of work and full bellies." The Decepticon who led the Mount Fuji excavation introduced himself. "See, I like a nice and smooth operation going as much as the next con, and I'm happy to know you all feel the same, that's why you work so hard, right? See, it ain't rocket science. Productive workers are happy workers. But, when someone tries to act all ungrateful and start a riot, that's when I get angry. Kinda like what these bums tried to do." Guilford gave a gasp as he saw on the screen Mrs. Ashford, Mrs. Statfeld, and even the Black King, all standing on a small platform that just barely hung over a vat of smelting metal. "See here, a couple of pro-Britannian chumps were planning on staging a revolt." Thunderhoof spoke. "Can't you meatbags take a hint? Britannia's gone. Deal with it. Like I said, productive workers are happy workers, but troublesome workers are dead workers." He pulled on a lever next to him that caused the floor to collapse as all three of them fell into the smelting vat. Guilford's pupils shrunk as he heard the painful cries of his three cohorts as they were burnt and melted alive all at the same time. "And that, folks, is what happens when you meatbags who's boss around here, ya got that?" Thunderhoof smirked. "So, keep out of trouble and we're all happy, make trouble, and I'll make trouble back. Have a good day." The screen cut off as all the human slaves, understandably horrified, wasted no time in getting back to work, else they suffer a similar fate. Guilford couldn't believe it. Was this really all the future hold? Was there no hope at all? "Get back to work, break's over," the Viacon with the electric whip told him, snapping his whip. Guilford glared at him as he tried to pick himself up, but his legs gave out as he fell back down. The Viacon chuckled as he saw his pitiful state. "Gotta admit, it's a privilege to see all you Britannians in such a state. It wasn't that long ago you meatbags thought you were on top of the world against the other meatbags, but I don't see much of a difference. I always thought you guys were annoying, but this is just pure gold." He laughed. Guilford glared as hard as he could, wanting nothing more than to fight back, but before he could make a move, a trio of individuals quickly gathered around him. They all appeared to be teenagers, two girls, one blonde, the other brunette, along with a boy with dark blue hair. "Hey, cut him a break, will you?" the boy chastised the con. "He can barely walk." The Viacon glared at the teenagers. "You know the rules, don't talk back and do what you're told." "We're not talking back, we're saying what needs to be said." The blonde spoke. "This guy just needs a break before he keels over. Is it too much to ask for 10 minutes just to rest?" The brunette questioned. "Or would you rather explain to Thunderhoof that you let production slow down just to mess with the slaves?" The Viacon could only glare harder but could not come up with a proper argument. "Fine. 10 minutes, then you get back to work." He walked away to check on the other slaves. Once he was gone, the three teenagers knelt around Guilford. "Here, take this." The blonde offered a canteen of water, which he took without hesitation and gulped it all down in one sitting. "Thank you," Guilford said in between breaths as he got a good look at the young individuals who helped him. I haven't seen any of you here before. New arrivals." "Something like that," the brunette said. "My name's Shirley, this is Millie and Rivals, we're here to help." "Listen, do you know where we can access communications?" Rivals asked, surprising Guilford. "Every major chamber in this mine has to have at least one communications port, right? Just in case it all goes down." Yes. "Why do you need to know that?" Guilford asked. Millie had a knowing smirk on her face. You'll see. Wouldn't wanna spoil the surprise. The 3 former members of the student council followed Guilford to the communications room on the farthest end of the chamber, doing their best not to draw attention of the other slaves or Viacon guards. So far it worked out just fine. Guilford was still confused about what these kids' intentions were. If they were to mess with the communications, they might get into serious trouble, and the last thing he wanted was to see children die. When they got to the communications door, they spotted 2 slaves standing guard, both men, and looked rather ragged as they sat on the ground. Millie walked toward them and decided to put on some charm. "Hey, why don't you guys get some water?" she offered. "My friends and I can cover for you." "But, if the guards find out," one man said rather nervously. "It would be only like 5 minutes. Millie brushed off. "Plus, we're only standing guard. It's not like it's part of the Energon production line, so it shouldn't be too much trouble, right?" Both men looked to each other before standing up. "Thank you, we owe ya." They both left to get some water as Millie carried a knowing smirk on her face. "Don't thank us yet." Once they were in the clear, Shirley, Guilford, and Rivals all stepped out. "All right, Rivals and I will stand guard," Millie said. "Shirley, you know what to do." Shirley nodded as she and Guilford entered the communication room. It was rather small as it had a console and a screen with Cybertronian script reading all over. "It's Cybertronian," Shirley said as Guilford watched her access the keypad on the console. "Probably built for Decepticon mini-cons, they want all the big guys on guard. Mount Fuji is huge, not to mention all the energon and mineral interference, so they gotta have terminals like these all over the place in order to establish smooth communications." Guilford looked toward her in surprise. "That makes sense, but how do you?" "Let's just say I know a certain doctor who helped me to better understand this sort of thing," Shirley said. "I know the basics about Cybertronian coding, but you should see my friend Nina. She's like a robot for the stuff." What are you doing, exactly?" Guilford asked, looking even more confused as he saw Shirley insert a thumb drive into the console before she pulled out a small communications device. "Zero, this is Shirley, the virus is uploaded. Tell Ratchet and the gang to work their magic." Guilford's heart skipped a beat. Did you just say Zero? "Oh, and also tell Cornelia that we ran into Guilford," Shirley reported over her device. "I'm sure she'll be happy to hear that." Now it almost felt like his own heart stopped completely. Cornelia. As in Princess Cornelia. Guilford could not believe what he was hearing. Who are you?" Shirley smiled as she faced him directly. "Millie, Rivals, and I, were Black Knights, partners to the Autobots." She showed the back of her communications device, which showed the emblem of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance. The Ark, a seemingly derelict ship that continued to lay at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, once serving as a ship of exodus for the Autobots to escape off Cybertron, was now the home and base for the Autobot Black Knight Alliance. Over these last 6 months, the Ark has undergone significant repairs and modifications, thanks mostly in part to the Resistance Group using their connections to reverse engineer what was left of the Harbinger in Australia. Currently stationed on the bridge at the communications hub were 2 Autobots. One was the medic everyone knew as Ratchet. The other was a red Autobot that had a more box-like frame to his body with a rod-like device on his right shoulder. This was the Autobot scientist known as Preceptor. Standing alongside them, at the human extension of the communications hub was the orange mini-con Fix-It, and right next to him was a human teenage girl with dark green hair and glasses, currently wearing a red dress with a blue hemming, thigh-high boots, and a black cloak that bore the Autobot Black Knight insignia boldly on its back. "The virus has been uploaded, or patched into the Fuji Mine's security systems," Nina reported, "giving us access to communications and security footage. TAI, it is time to get to work," Preceptor said to an individual who had yet to appear. A hologram then suddenly appeared in mid-air near the bridge's main screen, resembling a young human female wearing a red outfit that resembled a Japanese policewoman, complete with an Autobot Black Knight insignia on her hat. This was the Ark's new Artificial Intelligence Unit, TAI, or Tactical Artificial Intelligence, the daughter of Teletron 1. "Yes, Preceptor, I now have complete access to all of the mine's systems," TAI revealed. "I will begin disabling communications with any outside forces, while also sending a signal to our own to get ready." Fix it, I am patching you into the mine's communication system. Ratchet told the mini-con. Begin moving the humans to a safer location. Got it. Fix-It nodded as he accessed his console to speak directly into the mine's speakers. Emergency alert. All humans are to be transported to the Central Living Unit at once. Repeat. Relocate all humans to Central Living Unit. It's working, guys. They heard Millie's voice over the comms. Everyone's being moved. We'll head with them and blend in. Meet you guys there. TAI, begin mobilizing the attack. Ratchet ordered the ARC's AI. It won't be long before the enemy suspects something. Already on it, TAI said before she vanished from sight. As the attack was being organized for deployment, a quartet of human females, along with a certain cat, waited anxiously in the living quarters that had been built onto the bridge. One was the young Japanese girl and one of the heads of Kyoto, Kagaya Sumeragi. Another was the former Princess Euphemia Lee Britannia, now donning a primarily black uniform with a sleeveless top in golden trim that had a golden Autobot Black Knight emblem on its front, which also split into 4 pieces that stretched down her front and back, with a purple sash tied around the waist, black separate sleeves that stretched from her elbows to her wrists, and a pair of white thigh-high boots. Standing beside them was the former maid-turned-bodyguard, Sayoko, who now bore a black outfit identical to that of a kunoichi. And finally, there was Nunnally V. Britannia, her eyes fully open as she put Arthur down from her lap, stand up, clad in a black and gold dress that stretched down to her ankles, all to cover up the exosuit coverings that adorned her legs, which enabled her to stand. So, looks it's beginning, after 6 long months, Nunnally said in a somewhat nervous tone. Euphemia nodded. Everything's going to be different now. What do you expect? We're about to go to war with the Decepticons. Kagaya pointed out. But given this is Lelouch and Optimus we're talking about, I know we can win. This was enough for Nunnally to smile as she exchanged smiles with her elder half-sister, her friend, and bodyguard before looking toward the main screen where they would see everything that was occurring in the mines. The cargo bay was lined to the brim with hundreds of large and tall machines of all shapes and sizes. Most of them appeared to be nightmares of many different colors, from red to blue to white, even a single pink one, but most were predominantly black. But it wasn't just the nightmares that filled the space, it was all Autobots as well. In addition to a series of familiar faces, there were many new ones too. Every single Autobot and nightmare pilot, who was already in their cockpit or standing on the shoulder of their nightmare, gave their co-leaders their undivided attention. One was the unmistakable figure of Optimus Prime, and on his right was a black nightmare that stood on equal level of him, with the masked revolutionary himself standing on the nightmare's shoulder. Unlike his previous attire, while he still bore the same cape and mask, his suit had undergone quite a change. Gone was the purple and gold cravat or any other piece of fluff. Now it was all armor that covered most of his body, mostly black with dark purple, aside from the Autobot Black Knight emblem he bore proudly on his chest. You all have your assignments. Zero told his soldiers. Zero's squad will converge on the north side of the mines, the Elite Guard will take the south, the Black Dragon unit will attack from the west, and Wreckers will do what they do best on the east end, which is the most heavily concentrated of soldiers. Deputy commanders and the aerial bots will take their assigned unit to cover the skies. Optimus added. Prevent the leadership of the mines from escaping at all costs. Zero and I will see to it the slaves are safely brought aboard. You have all waited patiently for this day, for 6 long months, but your patience has paid off. Our forces have grown, we are stronger now than we've ever been. Through arrival of new Autobots as well as the joining of the Black Knights and Peace Mark, we have built a coalition that can and will free this world. And it's only going to grow. Zero announced. The Decepticons have underestimated humanity, and we will show them the folly of that mistake. Our revolution begins now. This was met with multiple cheers and battle cries that may as well have echoed throughout the entire arc. They were finally ready. Fuji Mines, Control Room. EYYU. What's going on? Thunderhoof exclaimed as he stomped into the control room. Why are my little meatbag workers in the living space and not working? Sir, our communications have been hacked. One Viacon reported. We can't re-establish. Find the wise guy who did this and teach him a lesson. Thunderhoof exclaimed. Suddenly, the alarm rang throughout the control room. What now? Multiple ground bridge portals are opening from all sides. Enemy units are pouring into the mines. Another Viacon reported only for him to give a gasp. "I don't believe it, it's the Autobots, and, it looks like the Black Knights." "What?" Thunderhoof shouted as he pushed the Viacon away to look at the battles ensuing on the screen. North Tunnels. The first vehicle to exit the ground bridge and engage the Decepticons was a pink sports car with a white stripe. It transformed to reveal a pink female Autobot who used her momentum to deliver a punch to take down one Viacon before opening fire with her Energon blaster to take down the three in front of her. Zero Squad, move in. Alita 1, the commander of the Zero Squad, ordered her team as they rushed past her to engage the enemy. On one side was Bumblebee, who drove in his vehicle mode, only his paint job had changed from last time, its colors were reversed with black being the primary color and yellow striped. Bumblebee shot into a group of 3 Viacons before transforming, and while in midair, drew his new weapon, a black steeled katana, big enough for an Autobot to wield, which he used to cut down all 3 Viacons in one slice. On the other side was the white nightmare known as the Guka Byakuin, piloted by Orpheus Zevon, a young man with blonde hair and green eyes. The nightmare rolled along the sidewall with its land spinner system before drawing its blade from its built-in right arm armament to cut the heads off 2 Viacons. With this group dealt with, 2 more units pushed forward. One was RC in her motorcycle form on the ground, the other was the newly upgraded Gurren Saitine 8 Elements that rolled on the ceiling with its own land spinner system. A group of 6 Viacons tried to shoot at them, but the Gurren's pilot, Colin Kazuki, pushed her nightmare forward, causing it to leap down from the ceiling and toward the group, where she unleashed her Radiant Wave Surger claw on the Gurren's right arm to unleash a blast of Surger energy that encompassed 3 of the frontmost cons to melt and explode in spectacular fashion. The remaining 3 tried to back up and gain some distance, but RC had already transformed and jumped over the Gurren, flipping over its shoulders for a boost to leap high into the air and opened fire with her Energon blasters to score precise headshots on all 3, killing them in an instant. As more Viacons attempted to come in and stop them, one more Autobot, in his red sports car vehicle mode swerved in to trip up the frontmost 2 Viacons before transforming to draw his sword and cut down a third. The remaining Decepticons decided to make a break for it. "Ah, what's the matter, cons? Sideswipe too much for ya?" The young Autobot named Sideswipe mocked. Only to realize the Viacons weren't retreating, but instead getting their hands on their massive drills, which they would use as makeshift weapons to try and obliterate the enemy forces. "Or, you're just getting those big drill things. Okay," Sideswipe said with a blank expression. "Don't get cocky, Sideswipe." Suzaku's voice rang out as the Lancelot Albion flew directly over him to draw its Varus rifle and fire a powerful blast that not only obliterated the first drill in the middle but created a shockwave that blew down and knocked over the remaining 2 that crushed the Viacons controlling them. "Guy calls me cocky, but he's the one piloting one of the most op nightmares around," Sideswipe said with a slight sulk. "Show off," Colin muttered at Suzaku's performance with a slight glare. "Commander Alita, tunnel entrance secure." RC reported to Elite 1 as the rest of the team regrouped. "Good work Zero Squad, but don't get comfortable," Alita advised. "Our job's not done yet." She, RC, Bumblebee, and Sideswipe transformed into their respective vehicle modes and rolled out along with the Gurren, Lancelot, and Byakuin. South Tunnels. From the southern side of the mines, in a much larger tunnel, a blue semi-auto truck led the charge with several other Autobots in vehicle mode behind him with several nightmares as well. Among these vehicle modes included a primarily white sports car with blue and red stripes, another white and blue sports car with the number 38 on the side doors, a white and black police car, and a blue police SUV. Riding alongside them were 2 Vincents, one was of black variety, the other had a dark purple motif with a cape similar to that of a Glaston Knight, and finally a black painted version of the Florence that flew over the group as they all shot straight toward a large group of 30 Viacon troopers that immediately opened fire. "Monica, break up their ranks." The blue truck ordered as the black Florence, known as the Florence Nero, shot ahead of the group in the air. "Yes sir." Monica Khrushchevsky, the former Knight of 12 replied as her nightmare immediately drew a pair of Hadron cannons from its shoulders and fired into the Viacons. The blast destroyed at least 10 of them as the remaining 20 scattered, allowing the Elite Guard unit to spread out and neutralize them quickly. The blue semi-auto truck in the lead shot forward toward 4 of the Viacons before he transformed to reveal himself as Ultra Magnus, who immediately drew a battle hammer made almost entirely out of blue energon, which he used to obliterate all 4 Viacons in one swing. 3 more tank Viacons attempted to charge up their main weapons to shoot down the large Autobot, but they were quickly gunned down by a hail of magnesium bullets from the 2 Vincent Nightmares that guarded Ultra Magnus' sides. "Heads up, Commander," Cornelia Lee Britannia stated as she piloted her own custom Vincent. "We got your back," Chigusa added as she was in the black Vincent. "Good work, soldiers." Ultra Magnus nodded. Along the right side of the tunnel, the 2 sports car traveled into a group of 6 Viacons that fired at them, only for the 2 Autobots to transform and reveal themselves as Geass and Smokescreen respectively. With Geass at the lead, he shot his Energon grappler to grab a Viacon by the head and pull him into a punch with enough force to send him crashing into a second. "Taste the music." Geass smirked as his right arm converted into a weapon to fire a condensed sonic blast and take down a third. "You're up, Undertone." Geass shot out an object from his right arm that appeared like a white buzzsaw, which transformed into the white Autobot mini-con named Undertone, who drew a blade from his back to decapitate 1 Viacon before landing on the ground. "Down in front," Smokescreen stated as he punched down a Viacon before firing a charged energon shot into the chest of a second to blast its spark out. "Too hot for ya, Con." Smokescreen smirked. On the left side of the tunnel, the remaining 7 Viacon troopers opened fire on the 2 police vehicles, with the car taking point, only to transform and reveal himself as the ninja bot named Prowl. While in mid-air, Prowl threw a series of metallic shurikens to decapitate 2 Viacons before landing on his hands in between 2 more to spin his legs like a helicopter and knock them down. The last 3 tried to ambush him, only to be hit in the head by precise energon shots from the crossbow of the female Autobot Strongarm. "I've got your back, sir," Strongarm told the veteran. "Nice shot, Cadet." Prowl gave a stern nod of acknowledgement. "Commander, south entrance is secure," Monica reported to Ultra Magnus as they regrouped. "We're bound to encounter more hostiles as we get closer to our destination before meeting up with the others." Ultra Magnus told everyone, "Stay on guard and remember the plan." "Yes, sir." They all acknowledged, save for the silent Undertone who only nodded before relinking with Geass as the Autobots all transformed and rolled out with the 3 Nightmares deeper into the tunnels. East Tunnels. The entire cavern shook with explosions as a massive hole was blown in the wall, taking down several Viacons as a group of over 40 heavily armored Decepticon troopers looked in surprise to see a line of the new Black Knights mass-produced Nightmares, the Akatsuki, each of them either armed with heavy artillery weapon or built-in shoulder missiles. The one at the lead was piloted by arguably the most hot-headed of the group. "The Black Knights are back, bitches," Tamaki exclaimed as he and his unit opened fire again, clearing out the enemy troopers and letting the way in for the main wrecker lineup, led by Ironhide. The Autobot veteran transformed and let loose with his energon cannons to blow away the frontmost Viacons, with Bulkhead and Wheeljack swerving around his side in their respective vehicle modes before transforming, with Bulkhead bring up his mace to crush 1 Viacon and swing it to take down a second, while Wheeljack drew his blades to cut the arms off 1 Viacon before kicking him away and slicing to decapitate the one behind him. Above the group flew a bright blue Nightmare that looked like a mix between the Gurren and the Akatsuki, with a silver radiant wave surger-like device serving as its left hand. "Come on, Cons," the pilot, going by the name Rai Kururugi, exclaimed. "Let me show you the full power of this badass mother, the Raiden Saitine 7 Elements." He shot his Surger Claw forward, but instead of generating heat-based energy, it began to generate a surge of electricity, which it shot out to zap and blast 1 Viacon before the electricity spread to take down 5 other Viacons near him, causing all 6 to explode. "That's our Rai," Bulkhead smirked, bringing down the thunder. Wheeljack also smirked with pride. But they weren't the only ones. Joining them and riding past them were 4 more Autobots in their vehicle modes: a green and black monster truck with a dinosaur-like motif, a cyan-blue armored-colored motorcycle, a red Cybertronian tank, and a dark blue sports car with flames on the side. Flying above them was a variation of the Galician, which was now black and blue, as opposed to white, and equipped with a float system. The group appeared to be heading for a line of tank Viacons. "Warpath, let's clear out these tanks," Nonette Enneagram stated as she piloted the Galician Conquista. "You got it, baby," the tank named Warpath exclaimed as he fired a charged energon shot. Kablam! Nonet also fired a shot from its Hadron blaster. Both shots easily blew away most of the tank Viacons in spectacular fashion. Out of the smoke drove the monster truck before it transformed into the heavily armored Autobot known as Grindcore. "Who here needs punching?" he exclaimed enthusiastically before punching a Viacon so hard he was sent flying to the other side of the tunnel. He sent out a second punch that instantly broke apart the Viacon on contact. The motorcycle drove up next to him before transforming into the fembot Chromia, who drew an Energon snipper rifle, which she used to shoot down 4 incoming reinforcement Viacons with precise headshots. "No reinforcements crashing this party." Chromia smirked. "And that's why we bring our sharpshooter." Ironhide walked up with a smirk of his own, which they shared. "Hey lovebirds, the fight's not over yet." Nonet warned them as they saw a Decepticon destroyer-class trooper march its way toward them. "I got this." The remaining Autobot, still in his flame-styled vehicle mode, shouted as he zoomed directly for the large con. He transformed into the young Autobot wrecker named Hotshot before sliding underneath the larger enemy to fire at his underside before sliding back to leap up onto its back, with the Decepticon struggling to shake him off before Hotshot climbed up to the back of his head. Open wide. He shoved his Energon blaster directly into the Decepticon's face before firing a charged shot to blow its head off. Hotshot then leapt off the fallen corpse before taking a victory pose. "I've said it before and I'll say it again, that guy is awesome," Tamaki stated as he and his squad rolled up. "We're not finished." Ironhide got everyone's attention. "We got the most important job here, let's keep going." "We're really gonna do this?" Nonet asked. "I mean, not even Britannia. It's either that or let the cons have this place," Wheeljack said. "Kirihara and the rest of Kyoto did give us permission to do this," Bulkhead pointed out. "Then we better get going," Rice said with narrowed eyes as the entire Wreckers unit proceeded deeper into the mines, taking them into the unexplored areas of Mt. Fuji. West Tunnels. The Decepticon troopers had already engaged with this small enemy unit, though the size didn't seem to matter as this group of nightmares, along with a single Autobot, cut them down with grace and agility. At the lead was a black nightmare that bore a slight resemblance to the Gekka, known as the Zangetsu, piloted by none other than Toto himself, who rode into a group of 5 Viacons before drawing his nightmare's katana to slice with such speed that they were already scrap in less than 5 seconds. Black Dragon Unit, press on. Toto ordered his squad as 4 dark blue Akatsukis rode past him, each one piloted by his comrades formerly known as the 4 Holy Swords, Chiba, Urabe, Senba, and Asahina, alongside an orange car, and a purple nightmare that carried a large quantity of blades. "Surround them and initiate the spinning life or death formation," Chiba ordered. "Right." Asahina, Senba, and Urabe all exclaimed as the 4 of them surrounded a group of 6 Viacons before spinning around them as they pointed their katanas outward to begin severing the limbs off the Viacons in spectacular fashion. The purple Gekka, also known as the Gekka Shiden, drew a pair of large Shiden Kamenaritsuki swords to cut down 4 Viacons in one slice as it zoomed past them. The pilot of this nightmare was named Zidane, a man of Chinese ethnicity with partially long dark brown hair and brown eyes, as well as a pair of glasses. The orange car drove toward 4 Viacons before transforming to reveal himself as the Autobot Drift, who wielded a pair of dual blades, which he sliced outward to decapitate the 2 Viacons in front of him before the remaining 2 tried to gain some distance. Jetstorm. Safeguard. Deploy. Drift deployed a duo of mini-cons from his arms. Jetstorm was primarily black while wielding a set of nunchucks, and Safeguard was red as he wielded a naginata. Jetstorm was already at the face of one of the Viacons, which he based with his nunchuck repeatedly before knocking him down. The final one was sliced at the legs by Safeguard's naginata, knocking him down before Slipstream finished him with a slice at the neck area. "Master, the enemy has been dealt with in this area," Jetstorm reported to Drift. "If you wish, we can scout further ahead," Safeguard offered. "Negative, return," Drift ordered, prompting the 2 mini-cons to return to him as he and the rest of this unit pressed onward. Outside, a large door was opened along the side of Mt. Fuji, which was revealed to be an escape route as one large dropship was escorted out by a large group of 20 helicopter Viacons. "EYYU. Get that Energon outta here," Thunderhoof told the pilots over. "I'll be damned if I let those stinking bots and their meatbag sidekicks get all the goods." We're just leaving the mines now. One Viacon pilot reported in. Incoming. The co-pilot alerted as they saw a large group of airborne Akatsukis, all owned by the Black Knights, alongside two others flying nightmares. One was black and looked like a slimmed-down version of the Gawain, and the other was much larger and heavily armored. They were known as the Gawain Narian and the Agravain. They're trying to escape with the Energon. Konami Ogi, who piloted the Gawain Narian, exclaimed with a heated glare. Not if we have anything to say about it. The flamboyantly dressed masked man by the alias of Wizard stated, as he piloted the Agravain. Aerial bots, Ogi and I will secure the transport. You lead our forces to take out the escort. A group of 4 Autobots, in their vehicle modes as fighter jets. One was a white version of a Lockheed State Route 71 Blackbird, another was an F-15 Eagle jet with red stripes, the third was a silver Concorde, while the fourth and final one was a red and black VLOT jet with turbine engines. Acknowledged. Silverbolt, the Concorde, replied. Aerial bots, move in. He and his teammates led the flying Akatsukis into the charging horde of helicopter Viacons. Due to being caught by surprise, the Decepticon forces were quickly gunned down by the Black Knight's nightmares while the aerial bots took out more than a few themselves. Silverbolt transformed and hovered in the air with jet boosters on his feet to gun down 3 incoming helicopter Viacons with his rapid-fire Energon machine gun. Jetfire covered his back as he transformed from his Blackbird mode and hovered behind the leader of the aerial bots and managed to get a target lock with his rocket launcher to fire and destroy 2 more helicopter Viacons. Hey Windblade! Air Raid exclaimed in his Eagle mode while flying alongside the VLOT jet. Bet I can take down more cons than you. You're on. Windblade accepted the challenge as they both shot into a group of helicopter Viacons. Windblade transformed into her robot mode to pull out both her blades and slice the 2 Viacons that she shot over before transforming again to fly toward a third and gun it down as well as a fourth with rapid-fire Energon blasts from her vehicle mode. At the same time, Air Raid transformed into his own robot mode and hovered in the air while in the middle of a group of 3 helicopter Viacons, whom he was able to easily blow out of the sky with his Energon shotgun. We just lost all our escorts. The Viacon pilot of the transport exclaimed, only for him and his co-pilot to look in shock as a green energy blade pierced through the ceiling to cut a hole in it, which was revealed to be the work of the Gawain Narian. We'll be taking that Energon off your hands now, Ogi said as he reached in with his nightmare to grab the Viacons by their heads and yank them out, only to be quickly obliterated by a large hadron blast from the Agravain. Deputy Commander, use your /Harkins to stabilize the transport. Wizard told him as he already fired his nightmares /Harkins, 8 total, to grab the starboard side, while Ogi did the same for his Gawain's 10-finger /Harkins on the port side. Both nightmares held the transport steady as they kept themselves hovering in the air. TAI, we have the transport secure. Prepare an immediate ground bridge to the Ark's cargo bay. Preferably a large and empty one. Jetfire accessed his comms. Roger, Jetfire. Opening ground bridge now. TAI responded just as a large ground bridge portal opened up below the transport, allowing the Gawain and Agravain to lower it into the portal. Once it was safe and secure, the portal closed. Scrap yeah, we just scored a ton of Energon. Air Raid fist bumped. Do we really need it though? Windblade asked. I mean, the science group already got that synthetic Energon stuff figured out. Not completely. Jetfire put in. We were able to mostly stabilize the formula, enough so that it can power the Ark and sustain our nightmares, but it's not ready for medical use. But this does cut our need for natural Energon down quite a bit. Come on, let's make sure no stragglers got away. Silverbolt transformed as the large group of flying Autobots and nightmares searched the airspace around MT. Fuji. Mount. Fuji, Central Chambers. 20 Viacons patrolled the area that guarded the sealed living quarters where all the human slaves were currently being contained. However, guarding would prove to be the least of their worries as a ground bridge portal opened up and 2 nightmares flew out, alongside one particular Autobot in the form of a red and blue semi-auto truck. One of the nightmares was a pink variety of the Akatsuki, while the other one was a tall black nightmare that had the emblem of the Autobot Black Knight Alliance etched proudly in shiny silver right on its chest. This was the Shinkiro. Immediately, the Viacons opened fire onto the trio, with the Shinkiro and pink Akatsuki surrounding Optimus on all sides to generate a blaze luminous shield, both ends converging into a dome-like shield to protect all three. They don't even wait for an order. CC, also known as Sarah, said with a smirk as she piloted the pink nightmare. Goes to show they're afraid. As they should be. Zero, who had taken off his mask to reveal his face as the young revolutionary Lelouch v Britannia, typed away at a built-in keyboard in his cockpit, causing him to drop the shield, with the Shinkiro's chest plate opening up to produce a prism-like crystal. The prism was fired from the chest just as a beam shot out and hit the prism from behind, causing the beam to refract and shoot outward in the form of multiple energy beams that carved through the 10 Viacons they were facing like tissue paper, while also obliterating and section mines. Sarah then went on the attack with her nightmare, firing her Akatsuki's wrist-mounted machine guns to gun down 2 Viacons while Optimus Prime drew his axe and sliced to bring down 3 Viacons in one strike. He then converted his right arm into an ion blaster to shoot and blast 4 more, leaving only 1 Viacon standing. The single remaining Viacon may as well have made an oil leak as he was literally cornered by Optimus Prime with the Shinkiro and pink Akatsuki on his left and right side respectively. Optimus Prime, I surrender. I surrender. The Viacon raised his hands. Where are your human prisoners? Optimus questioned. In that chamber. Right over there. The frightened Viacon pointed to the large steel door. You will open it and release your prisoners. Optimus demanded. I can't. The Viacon stuttered. If Thunderhoof found out. Then I suppose we have no choice. The Shinkiro's cockpit opened, revealing Lelouch's face as his Geass activated, the red emblem shining in both his eyes as he looked directly into the Viacon's optics. Open the gate immediately. The sigil flew from both Lelouch's eyes and into the Viacon's optics, causing it to glow a slightly brighter red before he was put under Lelouch's control. As you wish. He walked toward the console and began to press the key commands to open the gate. Lelouch's Geass has gone under a significant change. Sarah thought to herself. Typically, once a Geass reaches this stage, it can't be turned off, which should have been the case after exposure to the thought elevator over 6 months ago. But now it's strong enough to affect Cybertronians and Lelouch has complete control over it, able to turn it on and off as he sees fit. Maybe it's because he was exposed to Optimus, Matrix. Perhaps it's a sign of how much he himself has changed. Either way, I'm glad he was able to master it. She smiled. The door began to open as the Geass Viacon walked back to the group. It's done. Is there anything else you need me to do? Yes. Lelouch nodded. Leave this place, take some time to reflect on your life, such as your choice in allegiance. As you wish. The Viacon then transformed and left the mine. Optimus couldn't help but smile at Lelouch's choice. A few months ago, he probably would have ordered that Viacon to kill himself, but instead told him to rethink his life. Whether or not this mean he would join the Autobots or just leave the Decepticons was unsure, but even with his Geass, Lelouch still left him a choice. With that done, Optimus, the Shinkiro, and Pink Akatsuki walked toward the gateway where they got a good view at the conditions of every human slave there. There were over 1 million total, and each one looked like he or she was on the verge of starvation. It was worse than what people would look like in the ghettos of the old Britannian areas. Once the people's eyes set on the Autobot and 2 nightmares, most of them looked more than a little frightened as they backed away slightly, all save a few. Hey, Optimus. Zero. We're over here. Rivals waved as he, Shirley, and Millie revealed themselves, along with the surprised Guilford who looked toward them in shock and awe. Zero, and Optimus Prime, they're alive. Lelouch breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing his friends from his nightmare's screen. Thank God. To think the Decepticons could enslave so many people in just a short time. Sarah spoke to her 2 contractors. And this is only one area, I can't even imagine what the others are like, as well as the old homeland that was once Britannia. What's happening here and there will happen in the rest of the world soon enough. Lelouch said with a serious expression as he put on his mask. But we will not let that happen. These people need a future they can believe in. The cockpit of the Shinkiro opened up, allowing Zero himself to stand in his full glory, causing all the people to look in awe and surprise. Zero. I thought he was dead. Does he look a little different? Did he come to save us? If that's Zero, does that mean that's an Autobot with him? I think it's their leader. People of Japan, be they Britannian or Japanese, I am sorry you've had to endure such horrors. Zero began to announce. But that ends now. Optimus Prime himself then stepped forward. For those who do not know, my name is Optimus Prime, leader of the Autobots. We are here to liberate not just you, but the whole of Earth from the tyranny that's been forced on you. I know many of you are scared, and maybe even not have the will to fight, but I have seen the best of you. The Black Knights are all human, no different from any of you, and have chosen to take a stand alongside my fellow Autobots and fight for their right to live free, a right that you all share with them. I am not asking you to fight. If you believe you are unable to, that is fine. We will see to it that each of you is properly taken care of. As everyone looked to the leader of the Autobots in awe, a white Geass sigil appeared in Optimus' blue optics as he spoke. If it's freedom you want, be it freedom to fight for your home, or to simply live in peace, I encourage you to come with us. We will invite you to join our cause. Once those words reached each of their ears, virtually everyone present, every man, woman, and child, even the 3 former student council members, and even Guilford himself, all had white rings form in their eyes as they felt their spirits lift and began to stand up on their feet, almost as if the spark of hope has just ignited a fire inside each and every one of them. Yeah, let's go. I want to fight. Let us follow Zero and Optimus Prime. They're here to save us. I might not want to fight, but my children deserve to live in peace. Both Sarah and Lelouch looked toward the last Prime with unsurprised and impressed smiles. Even before receiving his power, Optimus has always been able to touch the hearts and minds of those around him, myself included. Lelouch thought. And that's exactly what his Geass does. He does not control people against their will, but rather reignites their hope. It's the exact opposite of Megatron's power. The Prime Geass of absolute conviction. Sarah thought. My power combined through the Matrix has granted a power that I never thought could be possible with Geass, the power to inspire hope. Nobody is controlled, they know exactly what they're doing, their spirits are just raised, and that can make a world of difference. TAI, we need a ground bridge at our location. Optimus Prime contacted the Ark. We have over 1 million human prisoners that need food, water, and medical attention. Only 1 million? TAI asked in a joking fashion. We'll still have plenty of food and space to spare. A ground bridge portal then opened as Optimus, Zero, and Sarah began to escort all the people to safety. The Ark. Within a large laboratory, which was built for both Autobot and human personnel, a group of human scientists consisting of Lloyd Asplund, Rakshata Chala, Cecile Krumi, and a relatively new member by the name of Ganabati, a large middle-aged bearded man of Indian descent, all watched from multiple screens as they saw the battles taking place all across the Fuji mines. Oh my, look at the Decepticons fall. Lloyd said casually. I'd say we did rather impressive work in just a short time span of 6 months. What do you expect? Rakshata asked in a similarly carefree tone. There's literally nothing else to do here. No fighting, no worrying of racial or noble status. Honestly, I'm actually grateful that the Decepticons decided to send Earth into a living hell. You make it all sound so horrible. Cecile said. Still, we can't take all the credit. Most of it goes to Ratchet and Preceptor. Yes, finally we get full access to good old Cybertronian technology. Lloyd said with a grin. And the fact that most of this came from us taking apart the Harbinger and using it to help put the Ark back together. Bet you're happy about that, aren't you? Ganabati smirked toward Lloyd. Considering the cons double-crossed you and your empire, it's like revenge for you isn't it? I'm not one to take things personally for stuff like that. Lloyd shrugged. But, if you do believe in karma or stuff like that, I'd say that a stealing from the Decepticons to build our own forces could count as that. So I guess revenge is pretty sweet. He finished with a grin. I myself am more impressed by our 5 masterpieces. Rakshata said, referring to the nightmares piloted by Zero, Colin, Suzaku, Rai, and Ogi. The Shinkiro, the Gurren of 8 Elements, the Raiden, the Gawain Narian, and the Lancelot Albion. The 5 most powerful nightmares in the world, bet they can even give the likes of Soundwave and Megatron some trouble. Well, considering they were made from those protoforms we found in the Harbinger, it only makes sense. Cecile commented. Still, I'm not comfortable with using what was supposed to be a living Cybertronian to build weapons of mass destruction. Even Ratchet said it would be alright. Lloyd responded. Besides, we're at war, and a war is the last place you'd want to raise a baby, even a baby alien robot, right? My thoughts exactly. Rakshata agreed. Mount Fuji. A stone wall collapsed as the wreckers all piled into what appeared to be the largest untouched energon reserve in the entire mountain. Blue crystals appeared to stretch for miles on end as all the Autobots and Nightmares stepped into the cavern. That's a whole lot of raw energon. Bulkhead looked in awe. Yeah, over 200 armies worth. Chromia added. Is that a lot? Grindcore asked. Enough to level this entire mountain. Wheeljack said. And then some. I can't imagine anyone who's not gonna see something like this. Hotshot commented. So, we're really gonna do this? NoNet asked. I know I probably have no room to talk since I'm Britannian and we all know what Britannia tried to do to this place. Better this than let Buckethead do what he wants with it. Tamaki said with a slight scowl. Yeah, I agree. Even Rai nodded. Let's send the Decepticons a message with this, no matter what, we will not yield to them. Alright, let's blow this damn thing up. Warpath shouted. You heard the rookie, Wreckers. Ironhide told the group. Get the bombs all set up. EYYU, how in the name of Primus did this entire mine get taken? Thunderhoof exclaimed as he shook a Viacon by the shoulders. And why ain't we got communications back up? I don't know sir. Thunderhoof, all the Autobots are retreating, and they took the humans with them. Another Viacon stated. Good riddance. Thunderhoof spat in disgust. I'll just find more meatbags to fill the missing spots. This world's got plenty of them. Sir, we have a problem, the first Viacon shook with fear. What now? The Autobots, they rigged the mine to explode. Thunderhoof's face turned blank for a moment. Say what? The bottom of the mine's deposit, it's lined with explosives. The Viacon brought up the chamber the wreckers were previously in, on screen, to show that the entire place was lined with bombs ready to go off. Out of my way. Thunderhoof made a break for it toward the exit. I ain't staying for no fireworks. Right as he left, his two Viacon companions also screamed as they tried to catch up and escape. The Ark. Everyone from the MT. Fuji mission had returned, be they Autobot or Black Knight, and most of them were helping all the liberated slaves get to the medical center as Lelouch, Optimus, and Sarah all stood on the bridge, with Lelouch holding the trigger in his hands. So, this is it. Lelouch said with a slight gulp. There's no turning back after this. I doubt anyone would want to go back at this point. Sarah pointed out. Agreed, there is only one direction we must take, and that is forward. Optimus added. I regret what we must do here, but it is necessary. We cannot allow such power to fall into Megatron's hands. Lelouch understood, he remembered Kirihara's words quite well. Megatron has already destroyed Mount Fuji, it's nothing more than an empty husk now. I'd rather see it as a pile of rubble, a symbol of our resistance, than continue to watch it defiled at the hands of those vile Decepticons. Cliffjumper, Dreadwing, and all those who died fighting for the cause that we fight for now, Lelouch muttered as a serious and determined expression formed on his face. I swear, your deaths will not be in vain. Hope begins now. He pressed down on the trigger. Multiple explosions erupted all across the base of Mount Fuji, before the entire mountain began to implode and collapse inward. The wreckers had placed the correct number of explosives in the right spot to ensure that the mountain would not explode directly outward and hurt any people that might still be in the area, but rather have the entire mountain fall in on itself, which is exactly what was happening this very moment. Thunderhoof drove in his vehicle mode as fast as he could to try and get to the exit, but the ground under him began to collapse just before he made it to the exit. The Decepticon crime boss turned slave owner gave a scream as he was buried alive as Mount Fuji finished its destructive collapse. North American continent, New Town, Darkmount. Soundwave had just finished delivering his report to the Decepticon leader, who sat in his throne that was perched at the very top of his fortress. Excellent work, Soundwave. Megatron congratulated. When we stormed the Yakin Hall of Records in the waning days of the war for Cybertron, we acquired highly classified files written with Autobot codes, which we've been unable to decipher, until now. Megatron chuckled. You never cease to surprise me, my friend. Soundwave nodded as his visor lit up to show a three-dimensional image of Earth, with 3 specific locations pinged. Coordinates. Megatron observed. Yakin was the Autobots' greatest stronghold, one built to protect certain artifacts, or even confiscated weapons, which were launched to this planet for safekeeping as a last resort should Yakin fall, which I saw to personally. He snickered. So, You've only decoded 3 entries. Am I to assume there are more that you have yet to decode? Soundwave nodded again, confirmation. Good. I can only wonder what lost weapons we'll be reunited with, or what other artifacts the Autobots have fought so desperately to hide from us. Megatron could barely contain his evil jubilation. Lord Megatron. Starscream ran towards the throne with Thundercracker and Skywarp by his side. Mount Fuji in Area 11. It has been destroyed. Megatron rose from his throne as he glanced at the Seeker. Is that so? It's true, Lord Megatron. Skywarp reported. We've just received the alert. Mount Fuji was among our largest supplies of energon on this planet. Megatron said in a somewhat skeptic tone. How is it I'm only hearing of its destruction now? We should have gotten an alert that it had been attacked sooner. We don't know. Thundercracker said. Something blocked all communications from the mines. Could it be the Autobots? Starscream wondered. Most likely. Megatron deduced. Britannia has been wasted away to nothing. Euro-Britannia and the EU currently remain in conflict with one another, and the Schneisel is still negotiating with the Chinese Federation under Soundwave's observations. No other force is capable of something like this. I suppose it was only a matter of time before Optimus showed his face again. However, Soundwave's visor lit up as it seemed to pick up a strange signal, something that caught the interest of his leader and the Seekers. A broadcast, Thundercracker asked in surprise. From who? Where? Patch it through. Megatron ordered as Soundwave shined a hologram from his chest to show a 3-dimensional screen in front of himself and his fellow Decepticons, which at first appeared like static. However, there was a certain figure in the center that caused the Seekers to look in shock. Wait, is that? Skywarp muttered. The holographic footage cleared up to reveal a masked and robbed individual they all recognized instantly. I am Zero. What? Megatron exclaimed, almost complete losing his composure as the Seekers stumbled back. Even Soundwave was caught off guard. People of Earth, we have returned. The footage zoomed out to show Optimus Prime as well, with Zero standing on his shoulder. Zero and Prime. Starscream shouted, not even bothering to hide his fear. It cannot be. Zero. I thought he was dead. Skywarp exclaimed. You killed him. We saw you do it, Lord Megatron. Thundercracker also exclaimed as the Decepticon leader scowled while they continued to watch the broadcast. Hear us, Decepticons. All of you who have power, heed our words carefully. Zero began. We are burdened by sorrow. War and discrimination. Malicious deeds carried out by the strong. Britannia may be gone, but the world has not changed. The people still suffer. That is why the resurrection of the revolution is necessary. The Autobots and the Black Knights live. Optimus continued. During our absence, our forces have grown. We apologize for not being there as the Decepticons have shaken this world to its core, but now we are ready to face them. The strong will no longer oppress the weak. It begins today, with the liberation of the United States of Japan. Trace the signal, Soundwave. Starscream ordered, but it appeared Soundwave was already on it as his visor showed signals being crisscrossed all over the planet. This broadcast is on all frequencies. Thundercracker exclaimed. Everyone on the planet is seeing it. Even our own forces. They all know. It's gotta be a fake though, there's no way that's the real Zero. Skywarp stated. He's just a human. A human can't survive what Megatron did to him. However, Soundwave had ran Zero's voice from the broadcast based on older recordings from 6 months ago, and even did the same with that of Lelouch v Britannia outside his Zero attire to make absolutely certain. It was a 100% match. It is Zero. The real one. Megatron scowled. How could he have survived my dark Geass? Optimus was able to overcome it, but that was likely through the Matrix. Megatron's optics widened. Did Optimus somehow share his power with Lelouch? It was true that the broadcast was shown all over the world. Even the Decepticon forces that occupied the various conquered areas were seeing the message that Optimus Prime and Zero were currently delivering. Even Shockwave and VV in the Geass Orders base were seeing it. We shall fight against all those who abuse their power. Zero continued. VV scowled as he glared with all the hate that he could muster at the two figures, while Shockwave still maintained his stoic expression but was nonetheless surprised to see that Zero was alive, even having been fully exposed to Megatron's dark Geass. It defies logic, Shockwave said. How can Lelouch still be alive? The livid VV thought to himself. Why is he still alive? He has no right to live. How dare you, Lelouch? How dare you continue to live when you shouldn't? You and that wretched Optimus Prime. Once again, here and now, we hereby declare war on the Decepticon regime that wrongfully and unjustly occupies this planet. Optimus declared. Everyone in the EU as well as Euro-Britannia watched the broadcast, from those who lived peacefully in their homes, to people in the military within their bases, and even the highest politics who continued to watch with interest. Even those currently in hiding such as Maribel and her Glindonites. Those in the Chinese Federation watched as well, including all the high eunuchs, as well as the young empress and her closest companion, Li Xing. He exchanged a brief look with the young figurehead as he gave a small smile and a wink. So, they finally made their move. We now direct this message to the leader of the Decepticons, Megatron himself. Zero stated, you can torture us, bomb us, threaten to burn our homes and nations to the ground, but you will not break the will of humanity. Our army will continue to grow, and we will not stop till you and your forces either leave this planet now and forever or are brought down by our blade. Dramatic as always, but he wouldn't be Zero if he weren't. Geass smiled as she, Nunnally, Sayoko, and Euphemia all sat in the room that Nunnally shared with her brother, while watching the broadcast from a television screen. Euphemia petted Arthur on her lap while also holding hands with her younger half-sister, who also held her other hand with bodyguard, Sayoko. To the people of Earth who are oppressed, and who also wish to take a stand, we invite you to join us, to join the Autobot Black Knight Alliance and fight for the freedom of all sentient beings. Optimus continued. Whatever differences in race, gender, ideology, even species no longer matter once you are a part of this coalition, your only requirement is to fight for what is just. Even those within the Ark watched the broadcast, such as their fellow Autobots and Black Knights, and even rescued citizens. Among them was the intelligence group consisting of the other heads of Kyoto like Kirihara, Diethard Reed, who looked every bit as fanatically excited as one would expect, and even the mysterious Miss X who served in intelligence when part of Peace Mark. And so, it begins. Kirihara said with a smirk. With that, the broadcast came to an end, leaving Megatron at Dark Mount boiling with rage. None of the Seekers or Soundwave dared to move or speak, or else risk invoking his wrath. So, it's war then is it? Megatron began. So be it. I will see to their deaths personally this time. Soundwave. Supply me the first of those Yakan coordinates. He ordered his communications officer. Starscream, assemble your Seekers, the Combaticons, Squadron X, and any other Decepticon currently not on a mission. Deploy the Nemesis for Area 11 immediately. Why, yes, my liege. Starscream bowed with his fellow Decepticons before they left, leaving their vivid leader alone. I don't know how you survived, Lelouch. Megatron began as his dark Geass flared to life. But I'll make you wish you hadn't. And Optimus will rue the day he came to this planet. Mount Fuji, or what was left of it, was nothing more than a ginormous pile of rubble that was more than half the height of the mountain that once stood, with a gaping hole at the very top. One could say it was a tragedy, which it was in a way, but at the same time, it was also a symbol of hope and rebellion. However, it was also a site of such destruction that nobody would ever think that any life could have survived the collapse of the mighty mountain. However, there was still movement at a small spot along the southern end of the collapsed slope. Something underneath a pile of rubble tried to move and push the debris out of the way as a large shadow loomed over it. An outside force began to pull the rubble away to reveal what was underneath it. It was Thunderhoof, who had just barely escaped the worst of the mountain's collapse, but still looked more than a little worse for wear as he tried to pull himself out. Need a hand, brother? A new voice asked as what appeared to be a Cybertronian offered his hand to Thunderhoof, who accepted it and was helped out of the rubble. Thunderhoof almost lost his footing but was able to stabilize himself. Thanks man. However, Thunderhoof was caught by surprise when the individual who helped him also clawed at the Decepticon insignia on his chest, leaving a scar. EYYU. My apologies. The individual said in a seemingly sincere tone, who was revealed to be a silver Decepticon with yellow eyes, claws, and a wolf-like motif. He also bore a set of Decepticon insignias on his shoulders, but like with Thunderhoof, there was a 3-clawed scratch on them. The pain is temporary, and you'll soon come to understand, necessary. In the meantime, I can tell you've been through quite the rough patch. That's an understatement, Thunderhoof said with a scowl. I was the head honcho of this backwater planet's biggest energon supply, now it's all rubble. Megatron's gonna file my antlers when he's through with me. Well, I can help you get a chance at redemption, along with a possibly higher place in the Decepticon pecking order. The mysterious Decepticon offered. That, as well as the chance for revenge. I already have someone with me who is just itching for vengeance herself, which is to be expected considering she lost an arm and an eye to those Autobots and their human allies some time ago. You want revenge, redemption, and more power. Then stick with me, and I'll grant it all to you and then some. If we're talking business, I gotta at least know your name. Thunderhoof said before a smirk fell on his face. But I'm definitely interested. Glad to hear it. As for my name, call me Steeljaw. A measure of trust. Guilford was nothing short of amazed. Just a few moments ago, he and at least a million other people were enslaved in the Decepticon Fuji mines, only to learn that the Autobots and Zero were alive and have grown even stronger since he last saw them, but now he and all the slaves had been transported to what he could only describe as a massive hidden city. He didn't get a chance to see most of it as he and all the Savs were escorted straight to a shifting building that appeared to be built into the walls of this unknown location. This building appeared to be one of many hospitals that were located all across this area. At the moment, Guilford laid in a bed as what a Japanese woman, who appeared to be a nurse, looked him over. No internal damage to your bones and organs, that's good. Just malnutrition and minor dehydration. Most of the people brought in seemed to be in the same state, so no need for prosthetic limbs or anything. They made the effort to see that their prisoners, or rather slaves, were not worked to death. The tired Guilford responded. Wanted to keep their energon lines efficient. Well, that's considerate, the nurse said with sarcasm for a minor attempt at humor, which seemed to work as Guilford had a half smile. She then proceeded to put on a series of patches on his limbs and chest. These patches will emit small electric pulses that should help your muscles regain their strength. Given what Yuffie said, you're a soldier and you'd want to get out there and teach the cons a thing or two, right? That got his attention. Did you just say, Yuffie? The door opened as someone else stepped in that caused Guilford's pupils to shrink. Hello Guilford, it's been a while. It was Cornelia Lee Britannia, but she looked nothing like the Viceroy of Area 11 that she used to be. Her hair had grown slightly and was straightened out a bit more, and her attire was completely different. She wore a dark magenta and white-colored uniform, with a black robe draped over it like a cape, and a white sash tied on the right side that bore the Autobot Black Knight emblem on it. The moment she saw him, Cornelia had a warm smile on her face with her eyes shaking with emotion. Princess Cornelia. Guilford attempted to sit up, only for Cornelia to quickly rush toward him and put a gentle yet firm grip on his shoulder. Please don't get up, you need rest. Cornelia told him. He's certainly excited to see you. The nurse said. I wonder if there was more to your relationship than just that of a commanding officer and her soldier. Cornelia blushed slightly. Nurse Kazuki, it's not. I already told you, call me Akari. The nurse, now identified as the mother of Colin Kazuki, said in a friendly manner. Right, Akari. It's not like that, Cornelia said as she tried to wipe the blush from her face. But, would it be alright if I had a moment alone with him? And it's not what you think. Of course, it isn't. She teased before she genuinely smiled. But alright, just keep it brief, he still needs to rest. Understood. Cornelia nodded as Akari Kazuki left the room, leaving Cornelia alone with Guilford as she pulled up a chair to sit closer to his bed. Guilford, you have no idea how happy I am to see you again. I honestly had no idea if you'd even survived the uprising. Though Guilford was happy to see her again, one look at her and all he could feel was shame and regret. Please forgive me, princess. I couldn't protect you. I failed in my duty, I'm unworthy to be your knight. No, the fault is mine. Cornelia told him. After what happened at the special zone, I was only seeing red, I let my rage take control, I challenged Megatron directly, a horrible mistake. And that led to my capture. But, I think that my fault actually extends well before that. Is Princess Euphemia. She's here, with everyone else. She's alright, Cornelia assured, causing Guilford some relief. That's good. But your majesty, what happened back then? It wasn't your fault, Guilford tried to tell her. Yes, it was. Cornelia insisted. Yuffie tried to talk to me, to warn me, to get me to see reason. But I wouldn't listen. Pride and anger clouded my judgment. Maybe if I did listen, that horrible massacre wouldn't have happened. She gave a small sigh as she clenched her fists on her lap. But, now I'm going to do everything in my power to make it right. Guilford noticed the emblem on her uniform. You're a Black Knight. And partner to the Autobots. Cornelia confirmed. I know, it doesn't quite seem like me to do so, does it? To be honest, I never imagined you would. Not after what Zero did, especially when he killed Clovis. Guilford replied. True, he killed my brother. Cornelia responded. But, that's the thing. He's my brother too. Guilford shot out of his bed and looked to Cornelia with an expression of pure shock. What? Lelouch v Britannia. Cornelia began. Presumed deceased, alongside Nunnally when Britannia invaded Japan. Only to emerge from the ashes as the man who would try to liberate not only Japan from Britannia, and later the Decepticons' rule, but the whole world. Prince Lelouch survived. Guilford questioned, still not over his shock. As well as Nunnally. Cornelia added, causing Guilford to look even more shocked. She's here with the Black Knights too. The prince is Zero. I don't understand why he would. Guilford stuttered. Why, betray Britannia? Oh really, I can't imagine. Cornelia began, her voice carrying a lace of anger. After having his mother murdered, most likely by someone else in the royal family as opposed to terrorists. Then having his own sister blinded and crippled, only to be later exiled by our mutual father who didn't even bother to start an investigation over his wife's murder. And then later practically sentenced to death when said father invaded Japan with no regard for his or his sider's life whatsoever, knowing full well they would die, and not even bothering to take responsibility for such a betray when he was clearly at fault, and falsely made into a martyr specifically to discriminate against nations of people who had nothing to do his life whatsoever. With all that taken into account, I can't possibly see a reason why he would rise up against Britannia. She finished with clear sarcasm. Guilford winced at her tone. All right, when you say it like that, I suppose it makes sense. Lelouch had every right to despise and rebel against Britannia. Cornelia told him seriously. His own family betrayed him. I betrayed him. Guilford looked toward her as her face contorted an expression of regret. I should have been there with him when he confronted our father. That way, even if I got exiled too, I'd still be with them. Maybe I should have gone with them anyway and brought Yuffie as well. I've tried to murder him, Guilford. My own brother, whom I loved and grieved over after hearing reports of his death. But, Your Highness, you didn't know, Guilford tried to tell him. That's no excuse, Cornelia replied. I failed him and Nunnally. Honestly, it's a miracle that he even saw fit to let me into his ranks after all that, but he did, and I am humbled and grateful. Guilford, the goddess of victory, that princess that you served, she no longer exists, and it's not because Britannia's been destroyed. Even after its official fall, I've renounced my name, Yuffie as well. You renounced. It only seemed fair, Cornelia continued. I've done so much wrong since that day, my only concern right now is making this right. I'm going to help my brother and Optimus fight off the Decepticons and make this world into a better place, a far better place than what Britannia tried to do. I've spent more than 6 months doing what I can to contribute and earn all their trust. I'm no longer Princess Cornelia, I'm a Black Knight, a member of the Elite Guard unit under command of Ultra Magnus, the Autobot second in command. And I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but I can't be that goddess of victory you and Darlton once worshipped. Please don't take that the wrong way, I still care about you, and I'll do everything I can to try and honor Darlton's memory as well as those of his sons, but my priority is to protect my siblings, work alongside their friends, be they Autobot or human, and fix this world. I would like it, if you were there with me. But if not, I understand. Guilford honestly had no idea what to say to Cornelia right now. One look in her eyes and he could tell that she had meant every word. She was no longer the same individual he served 6 months prior to the Empire's fall. He could tell that she blamed herself for a great many things, but there was also a firm resolve to redeem herself and protect those she cared for. That was something he could respect. I will join you as well," Guilford said, causing Cornelia to look toward him with pleasant surprise. "I know it might be hard, but if you say you're going to fight as a Black Knight alongside the Autobots, then I will as well. Britannia may be gone, and you may have renounced your royal status, but I swore an oath to you, and I will not break it now, not ever." Cornelia smiled, almost tearfully. "Thank you, Guilford. But there are 2 conditions you must follow. Anything. First, try to be more open-minded." Cornelia began. "I know you were never racist or anything like that, but you'll be taking orders from individuals who were once your enemies. I'm sure they'll listen to what you have to say, but things are going to be quite different from now on." "I understand," Guilford accepted. "What's the other condition?" "Don't ever call me Princess, Your Majesty, Your Highness, or anything of the sort," Cornelia replied. "Same goes for you Fee, Lelouch, and Nunnally. If you do call us that, I'll personally put you back into this hospital bed." She glared at Guilford, causing him to look somewhat intimidated. But Cornelia's glare faded as she giggled. "Gotcha, I'm just kidding," she said in between chuckles. Guilford looked somewhat stupefied for a moment. She just made a joke. Cornelia Lee Britannia had just made a joke. He would have expected her to make a similar gesture whenever she was in private with Yuffie, but for her to openly jest in front of him was quite a surprise. But he didn't mind. In fact, he actually liked the fact that she smiled. It looked nice on her. "But seriously, please don't address me as if I were royalty," Cornelia told him. "Just, Cornelia, will do." "As you wish, Your High." Guilford stopped himself when she gave him an indifferent look. "Sorry. If it's what you want, Cornelia. It's gonna take some getting used to." "It's all right. At least you're not alone," Cornelia told him before standing up and placing a hand on his shoulder. "I am glad that you're here, Gilbert. Please get some rest." "All right," he nodded as he watched her leave, right before he just realized something. She called him by his first name. Today was certainly full of surprises, and he sure had a great deal of many questions that he was certain he'd get answers to. But for the moment, he was just happy to know that not only was Cornelia alive and well, but she appeared to be happy. And that was enough for him. Cornelia had walked out of the hospital building as she was greeted by not only her fellow Black Knights, Ogi and Chigusa, but also her Autobot commanding officer. "Commander, Magnus," Cornelia acknowledged. "Ogi." She also nodded to the organization's deputy commander. "How is he?" Ogi asked, referring to Guilford. "He'll be fine. Thank you for your concern," Cornelia assured. "That's good to hear," Chigusa nodded. "This might be a little embarrassing, but I've always looked up to Sir Guilford. He was honestly an inspiration for me. I imagine you'll be working alongside him soon," Cornelia told her. Not long after the Black Knights and Autobots went into hiding, Chigusa's memories as Valletta Nu came back to her. But something rather unusual happened. Though she retained all her memories, her kind personality as the amnesiac Chigusa remained intact, though she had also developed the resolve and physical abilities she had as a soldier of Britannia. It was almost as if the mind and soul of Chigusa had control over Valletta's physical body, like the 2 separate personalities had merged together. But whatever the case, Ogi was particularly happy to know that she was more than willing to try and change herself and become a better individual. "So, you are certain he'll work alongside us?" Ultra Magnus asked. "Absolutely." He confirmed it himself. Cornelia replied. "Commander Magnus, if possible, could he be placed in our unit, within the elite guard?" Ogi chuckled. "Really? You wanna be in the same unit as him? You better know to keep it professional when working," he teased, resulting in Chigusa giggling. "It's not like that, Konami," Cornelia exclaimed, her face blushing again before getting serious. "This is from a professional standpoint. It'll take him some time to adjust from being a Britannian soldier to a Black Knight, so it might be best if he's placed in the same unit as someone that he's familiar with to ease the transition. And we've worked together before, so I can safely say that if we're in the same unit together, he should contribute as a team player." "Understood." Ultra Magnus nodded. "I'll talk about it with Optimus and Zero and get back to you on it." "Thank you, Commander," Cornelia replied. "So, where are they anyway?" Suddenly, Tai appeared in between the three humans, causing them to startle slightly. They had just left for a mission a few minutes ago. Tai, you nearly gave me a heart attack. Cornelia exclaimed. We talked about you suddenly showing up in front of people. Obi told her in a firm tone, like a parent addressing a child. Just because you're an advanced AI, doesn't mean you can't learn manners. Sorry. Tai smiled apologetically. Still learning. You said that Optimus and Zero had gone a mission. Ultra Magnus got right to the point. Yes. An Autobot beacon was detected within a deserted area of what was once the Britannia homeland. Tai informed, getting everyone's attention. The area was relatively uninhabited by both Britannian and Decepticon forces, so they should be in and out pretty quick. Then went by themselves? Cornelia asked. No. They took Bumblebee, Ratchet, and Suzaku with them, just in case they were to run into trouble. Tai answered. An Autobot beacon, does that mean reinforcements? Chigusa asked. I don't know. Tai responded with a shrug. We'll have to see when they get back. A single silver Cybertronian jet flew toward the rocky base of this desert area, which also appeared to be an excavation site occupied by a large group of Viacon troopers and miners working to uncover whatever it was they've been sent to dig up. This jet came to a stop once it got closer to the ground to transform and reveal himself as the leader of the Decepticons. Megatron. Suzaku growled as he, Lelouch, Optimus, Bumblebee, and Ratchet remained in hiding, unbeknownst to the Decepticon forces presently stationed, both young Black Knights in their respective nightmares of the Shinkiro and Lancelot Albion. Suzaku, take it easy. Lelouch told him, we don't need you flying off the rails. Though he couldn't blame Suzaku for feeling more than livid at the sight of the Decepticon leader again after 6 months. Lelouch felt the same way, but it wasn't just anger. Seeing Megatron again reminded him too much of being subjected to his dark Geass, and that made him more than a little bit nervous. But what is he doing here? Bumblebee wondered. It seems the Ark detected the ancient Autobot frequency, precisely because it was unearthed. Optimus said. Perhaps we should call in for assistance. Ratchet offered. Maybe, that sounds like it might be a good idea. Lelouch agreed, not liking the idea of facing off against Megatron again. I'm sorry, but I don't think we can afford to wait for backup. Suzaku stated. I agree with Suzaku. Optimus said. Without knowing what the Decepticons have exhumed, I do not think I'm willing to wait either. He said upon forming his ion blaster. While Lelouch did agree that they can't take any chances if they didn't know what exactly the Decepticons were looking for, it still didn't make him any less nervous about confronting Megatron again. But he nonetheless joined his comrades in making their way closer. Meanwhile, as Megatron looked around the dig site, he noticed a pair of Viacons had found something, or rather they had found what they were looking for. Show me. Their leader told them. The two Viacons pulled out a large spherical pod. Bring it to me, with utmost care. One of the Viacons walked toward his leader to present to him the pod. Megatron opened the top to reveal its contents, causing him to smile upon seeing it. However, Megatron, he and his soldiers turned in minor surprise to see the trio of Autobots, and two nightmares with them, aiming their weapons directly at him. I cannot allow you to pilfer Autobot relics. Rather than look intimidated or angry, Megatron actually looked almost amused, if not eager. Not only are you misinformed Optimus, but I would strongly advise you to lower your weapons. He said as he pulled out the device within the pod. Unless you and your cohorts are in the mood for mutually assured destruction. The device in question was a handheld disc-shaped object made out of a dark blue material coated in silver metal. What is that? Suzaku questioned, while the Autobot trio looked as if they saw a ghost. It cannot be. Ratchet stuttered. The spark extractor. Optimus voiced in horror. The what? Lelouch and Suzaku exclaimed at the same time. Houston, we have a problem. Bumblebee played through his radio. Megatron appeared to have just now recognized the White Nightmare with an intrigued smile. The Lancelot, Suzaku, is that you, my boy? Suzaku himself glared hard. It's been quite some time. He then paid a glance at the Shinkiro. And am I correct to assume that's you in there, Lelouch? Or do you still play the revolutionary under the name, Zero? Lelouch glared as his arms shook. You know, I was actually surprised to see you in your return speech. You honestly caught me off guard, the first human to survive my dark Geass. Well, the first human without a code anyway. But seeing as your Autobot companions have yet to tell you what exactly this weapon is, allow me to explain it to you. Megatron showed the device in his hand. The spark extractor, as its name suggests, is a device that is capable of extracting every spark within its radius, a powerful and dangerous weapon indeed. And to think that you two actually gave me the means to find it. Although, the credit also belongs to sweet little Yuffie. That really earned a glare from Optimus, Lelouch, and Suzaku, the later practically gnashing his teeth at the mention of the Decepticon leader saying her name. If it weren't for her special zone, I would never have been able to swiftly and effectively remove Britannia off the face of the map. Megatron continued. They would have certainly jumped at the chance for a device such as this, so be sure to extend her my thanks, won't you, Suzaku? He spoke to him directly while also noticing the Autobot Black Knight emblem on the White Nightmare. You really should have left your Decepticon shield intact. You would have been given quite a position of power in this new world order, far greater than anything Britannia would have offered you. Instead, you'll get a grave. Why don't you come here and say that? Suzaku challenged. That fancy weapon of yours might be deadly to Cybertronians, but I don't think it's the case for humans. True, Megatron acknowledged. And as much as I'd enjoy another round with you and Lelouch, I'm afraid the acquisition of my prize takes precedence. He then accessed his comms. Soundwave, send a ground bridge. Instantly, a ground bridge portal opened up on the uppermost area of the excavation site. Engage them. Megatron ordered his troops as he proceeded to walk to the portal. The firefight had begun as all the Viacon troopers opened fire on the 5 heroes. Optimus and Bumblebee quickly returned fire with their respective Energon blasters, with Ratchet drawing his blades to cut down any Viacon that got too close. At the same time, the Shinkiro and Lancelot Albion shot into the air, and got back to back with each other as the Black Nightmare fired a weapon that seemed like a cross between a Hadron cannon and Energon blaster from its hands, firing blue pulsating spherical blasts to obliterate the Viacons with explosive results. The Albion's arms converted into weapons identical to Varus guns, firing Energon blasts of their own. As Bumblebee cut down one Viacon with his katana, he noticed Megatron was already at the portal. He's getting away. Suzaku, secure the package. Optimus ordered. Understood. Suzaku was about to fly forward, but Lelouch quickly contacted him. Suzaku, your objective is only to secure the extractor, do not engage Megatron. Lelouch told him. You understand, don't you? No matter what happens, or what he says to you, I order you to live. Yes sir. A red ring formed in both Suzaku's eyes, the old Geass command activating as the Lancelot Albion transformed into a white Cybertronian jet before gunning straight for the still open ground bridge at incredible speed. Seeing how Lelouch and Suzaku's new nightmares, along with Collins, Rays, and Ogis are made from Cybertronian protoforms, it only makes sense they have the ability to transform as well. Ratchet thought as he saw Suzaku enter the portal, with Lelouch and Optimus remembering their talk with Suzaku 6 months prior. Flashback, 6 months earlier. Lelouch and Sarah sat down with Suzaku, with Optimus present as well, as the former two explained to Suzaku what exactly happened on Shikini Island just before arriving on Kaname Island, or more specifically, they told him about Lelouch using his Geass on Suzaku to live, which is how he was able to escape without remembering any of it. I see, so that's what happened. Suzaku said, in a tone indicating he didn't know what to think. I'm sorry that I did that to you, Suzaku. Lelouch told him, but they would have killed you just to take myself, the Autobots and the Black Knights all out. I couldn't let that happen. I imagine Nunnally and Yuffie wouldn't have wanted that either. If you want, I can use my powers and remove the effects of that Geass from you. Sarah offered, surprising many of them. You are able to do that? Optimus asked. I can. Sarah confirmed. It'll be as if it never happened. Suzaku thought for a moment before giving them his answer. Thank you, but no. That took them by surprise. For a long time, all I've wanted was to die, and you all know the reason for that. I've wanted it for so long, that I think my body automatically jumps at the chance before I even think about it. Suzaku, Lelouch tried to say something. That's why I can't trust myself not to die. I know that sounds wrong, but it's the truth. Suzaku said. I know what I did, what my intent was selfish. I don't want to put Yuffie, Nunnally, or any of our friends through that, including you. That's why, until I can find a way to truly redeem myself and somehow let go of this, I'll carry this Geass command you've given me. I'll find a way to use it to help our cause. It'll be my penance, a way to make up for all I've done. Suzaku, are you absolute certain this is what you want? Optimus asked. Yes, without a doubt. The young soldier confirmed. Sarah had a look of somewhat uncertainty. Well, I suppose I could help find a way for you to control it. But something like this has never been done, so I can't make any guarantees. He looked toward his friend and leader who looked like he was about to protest. Lelouch, you told me that I have to take responsibility for my actions, that's what I'm doing. I've joined your cause, and I need to be responsible, this is the best way to assure that. Lelouch didn't quite like it, but he also knew that it provided a tactical advantage. Alright, I'm trusting you Suzaku, just be careful. Suzaku smiled honestly. You got it. End flashback. The Lancelot's jet mode was already in the ground bridge vortex as he saw Megatron walking toward the other end. The Geass Suzaku wasted no time in gunning straight for the enemy leader, veering toward the right side as he transformed the Albion back into robot mode to snatch the spark extractor from Megatron's hands and land in front of him. What? Megatron exclaimed. You're right about me Megatron. Suzaku told him, still under the Geass command, while also maintaining his own free will to speak. I've made mistakes, and if left unchecked, I might have indeed become the monster that you wanted me to be. A Grim Reaper. But now, I'm going to do everything I can to seek true redemption. We will stop you, that's a promise. Megatron snarled as he drew his blade, ready for a fight, but Suzaku knew he couldn't take Megatron in a fight right now and survive. So, using Lelouch's command to live, Suzaku transformed the Lancelot once again into its jet mode and soared over Megatron, causing him to miss his slice as he shot out of the vortex. No! Megatron shouted as he ran in pursuit. The Lancelot's jet mode made it back to the dig site to see the Shinkiro, along with Optimus, Bumblebee, and Ratchet finish off the last of the Viacons. Package is secure. TAI, we need a ground bridge extract, now. Lelouch ordered. Less than a second later, a ground bridge portal opened behind the group, who wasted no time entering just as Megatron exited his own portal, right as both closed. Megatron had his fusion cannon aimed at the ready, but he lowered it upon seeing his enemies were gone and his own forces had been destroyed, resulting in him growling in anger. The Ark Laboratory. Oh my, Lloyd smiled upon seeing the recording of the Lancelot's footage of Suzaku taking the spark extractor from Megatron. Looks like you really gave Megatron quite the headache there, Suzaku. He told the young Black Knight, who appeared clad in a uniform resembling a Knight of the Round, only it was black instead of white, and it bore the Autobot Black Knight emblem on its chest. Cybertronian nightmares will be all the rage across the world I imagine. Nobody on Earth will have anything like that. Thanks I guess. Suzaku said, not sure if that was a compliment towards him or his nightmare, though he was sure it was the later. Everyone, over here now. Perceptor ordered as not only the assembled scientists consisting of himself, Ratchet, Fix-It, Nina, Lloyd, Rockshata, and Cecile gathered around him, but also the assembled leadership and commanders consisting of Optimus, Lelouch, Sarah, Bumblebee, Colin, Ogie, Ironhide, Toto, Elita 1, Cornelia, Geass, Ultra Magnus, and Kagaya. Even Nunnally was present alongside Euphemia and Sayoko. The group had gathered around the device that was currently analyzing the spark extractor. Up on the screen above it, there was an Autobot logo shining on an image of the weapon. I have found the source of the frequency TAI detected. Perceptor informed. An Yakin homing beacon. Optimus recognized it. An Autobot beacon on a Decepticon weapon. Ogie looked in surprise. How did that happen? Our forces had confiscated a large number of Decepticon weapons. Ultra Magnus explained, many of which had the capability to inflict massive casualties. So, this spark extractor isn't even the worst of it. Euphemia asked in surprise. This weapon is indeed a deadly device, but there were many other equally dangerous weapons created by the Decepticons. Ratchet replied, any that we couldn't destroy were confiscated and placed under heavy guard. So how did this thing end up on Earth? Cecile asked. More importantly, How would such a weapon work? Rakshata asked. Perhaps there may be a way we can use it. A machine that can literally suck the life out any Cybertronian. Lloyd added. If we dropped it off in Megatron's backyard, we might pretty much end the war. Why does it sound like you actually admire such an instrument of death? Cornelia questioned. Well, it's to be expected since I'm a full-fledged sociopath. Lloyd admitted casually, causing most of the Autobots and Black Knights assembled to look at him questionably. How do you put up with him? Geass asked Cecile. I find myself asking that same question almost every day. Cecile replied. Getting back to the topic at hand, Sarah got everyone on point. We tried to capture or destroy any Decepticon weapon we could find during the war. Ironhide said. The most dangerous ones were locked up in the vaults under Yakin. Wasn't that the capital city of the Autobots on Cybertron? Nunnally asked. Indeed. Optimus confirmed. I worked there as an archivist under Alpha Trion's mentorship. One of the original primes. Sarah said, mostly to herself, remembering meeting Alpha Trion face to face via the matrix of leadership. Yakin was both a cultural center and a stronghold. Optimus continued. It had held up during most of the war, where all the confiscated weapons as well as other cultural relics were stored safely. Until Megatron was able to weaponize Dark Energon. Alita added. After that, nothing stopped him. He all but destroyed the city, raided the Hall of Records, overthrew Sentinel Zeta Prime, and even killed Alpha Trion. That caused most of the Black Knights, particularly Sarah, Lelouch, Yuffie, and Nunnally to look in surprise while the Autobots present all grimaced. But before Buckethead got to him, Alpha Trion launched all the confiscated weapons off-world so the bad guys couldn't get em. Geass said. And one of them just so happened to land on Earth. Kagaya put in. Well, thanks to Suzaku, that very same weapon will continue to remain out of Megatron's reach. Euphemia praised, causing Suzaku to smile. However, Colin did her best to hide a small scowl, though it did not go unnoticed by Lelouch. Optimus, is this spark extractor the weapon we'll find on our planet? Toto asked. Or do you think there might be more? I'm afraid I do not know. Optimus replied. Only Alpha Trion knew of where they would be hidden. If only Alpha Trion knew, then how were the Decepticons able to find it? Nunnally asked. This is only a guess, Lelouch began to speculate. But I think that perhaps Alpha Trion would have had the coordinates logged onto a computer of some kind. You cannot just launch a weapon of mass destruction without knowing exactly where you're sending it, just in case a random party would happen to stumble across it. But when he died, the Decepticons must have hacked and stolen the files. Then why are we only hearing about this now? Ogie asked. I can imagine a lot of individuals in Britannia would have loved to get their hands on weapons like this. No offense, he quickly said to Cornelia. None taken, the former Britannian princess replied. I know I would have jumped at the chance to use this spark extractor myself. Alpha Trion likely had the files heavily encrypted. Ultra Magnus assumed. Yeah, he was old, but he wasn't senile. Geass added. But Britannia fell 6 months ago. Colin said. And it didn't take the cons long to wipe them all out. So, it would only make sense for them to work on decoding those stolen files. Lelouch said with a grimace. There wasn't any way we could have known about this. Yuffie quickly said. None of us had a clue these weapons would be here on Earth. What's done is done, Alita stated. The spark extractor could be the extent of it, or all the confiscated weapons could be stored here. There's no way for us to know. Maybe there is. Nina spoke up for the first time, getting everyone's attention. If there's a way we can reverse engineer the Yakin beacon placed on the spark extractor, and if there are similar beacons placed on the other weapons, maybe we can use it to track them. That could work. Fix-It put in. But if it doesn't, we can still analyze the beacon's frequency so that TAI can immediately detect any other relics that might be unearthed. Please get to work as soon as possible. Optimus instructed the scientific division. Alpha Trion and so many others made the ultimate sacrifice to keep these weapons far from Decepticon reach. We must not allow their sacrifice to be in vain. The Nemesis, the bridge. Megatron slammed his fist onto the main console in frustration. The spark extractor was in my grasp. I should have terminated that boy when I had the chance. However, Megatron's rant was interrupted as Soundwave approached from behind. His visor turned on to show 2 more sets of coordinates. Indeed, Soundwave, we do possess 2 more sets of coordinates. Let us see what other long-lost treasures we might be reunited with. The Ark. Colin sat in her own personal quarters as she looked over some data from her latest performance in her advanced Gurren, trying to see where she could improve upon when she heard a knock on her door. "Colin, can you come outside for a moment?" She heard Lelouch's voice. Putting down her data tablet, she walked out into the main hallway to see not only Lelouch, but also Nunnally and even Bumblebee and RC. "You guys want something?" Colin asked. "I'm gonna get right to the point, here. Is there an issue you're having with Suzaku?" Lelouch questioned, causing Colin to narrow down her eyes. "I've noticed the way you've been acting around him lately. It's not like I'm yelling or punching him," Colin said stubbornly. "Colin, you know what we're talking about," Lelouch pressed. "And you should probably know why, all of you," Colin exclaimed. "Look, it's not that I don't trust him. You don't, and that's the issue right there," RC said. "What? You trust him, RC?" Colin questioned. "You're all buddy-buddy with him now." "Colin, why don't you trust Suzaku?" Nunnally asked. "You don't think he's a spy or anything, do you?" "No, he's not that smart," Colin said. "I know he's not a double agent or anything like that." "Then why are you giving him such a hard time?" Bumblebee asked. "I don't get why you guys are trying to make a big deal out of this," Colin quickly stated. "I know he's part of the team, he's not a spy or anything, heck you even put him in the freaking Zero Squad, Lelouch, so I'm willing to work with him. But I don't have to be friends with him if I don't want to be." "But why?" Nunnally asked. "Why don't you want to be friends with him? He knows what he did was wrong and he's taking responsibility for it. You and the Autobots all said that's why you didn't trust Suzaku at first, because he didn't take responsibility. But now he is. I just don't, okay," Colin stated, becoming more irritated. "I don't want to be friends with him. Does there really have to be some underlying reason about it?" "It sounds like there is," RC said. "Colin, can talk to us, to me." Colin looked away slightly. "It's nothing, just leave it alone, okay." She turned around and went back into her quarters. "Well, that went well," Bumblebee bleeped. I don't quite understand," Nunnally said. "I know Colin's stubborn, but it seems like she's holding a grudge." "This is only a guess," Lelouch assumed, "but it may have to do with Suzaku's father, and possibly her brother." "Maybe, but I think it's a bit deeper than that," RC pointed out. She knew her partner, and she knew that when Colin holds a grudge, it's hard for her to get over it. "RC, what do you think about Suzaku and all of this?" Lelouch asked. "Honestly, the kid seems pretty genuine about wanting to make amends," RC replied. "I don't think he's going to pull the same stunt he did with his dad or anything like that. I'm sure Colin knows that too. You think maybe you can help her with this?" Lelouch asked. "Because I have a feeling this grudge of hers is only going to grow, up to the point where it can get her hurt, as well as those around her. I'll see what I can do, but you know how stubborn she is," RC pointed out, causing Lelouch to exchange concerning glances with his sister, as well as Bumblebee. Meanwhile, in a separate area of the Ark, Suzaku had walked toward his own quarters, but as he walked, he noticed many of the looks several Black Knights gave him and recognized it before. It was similar to when he first joined the Britannian military and they all looked down upon him for being an 11. Now many of them are glaring at him because he used to be a Decepticon. He didn't blame them for their resentment, but it didn't mean it hurt any less. However, before he made it to his quarters, he looked more than a little shocked to see a large black and green Autobot standing in front of his door with a friendly smile. "Hiya," Grindcore waved in a friendly fashion. Grindcore," Suzaku stuttered. Not just him. He turned around to see both Shirley and Euphemia, the brunette having spoken to him first. "Shirley, Euphi," Suzaku voiced in surprise. "Are you okay, Suzaku?" Euphi asked. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be? Oh, maybe because of all the looks that most of the people here have all given you," Shirley pointed out. "I've noticed it, but you don't need to worry. It's fine," Suzaku told them. "No, it's not," Euphi exclaimed. "I can't stand the way people are thinking about you. It's even worse than before when they only looked down on you because you were Japanese, now they actually think you're a bad person. I can't just." "Euphi, it's alright," Suzaku insisted as he put his hands on her shoulder. "I deserve it. More than once did I attack them, I even attacked Lelouch and his friends. I became a Decepticon. But only because Megatron tricked you. Shirley tried to tell him. It doesn't matter. Suzaku replied. I made a horrible mistake in choosing his side, I'm not gonna run away from that. It's fine, I appreciate your concern, all of you, but I don't mind. You ain't gonna run from the blame, I like that. Grindcore spoke up, speaking as one ex-con to another. That took Suzaku by surprise. You used to be a Decepticon. Yep, not something I'm proud of. Grindcore explained. To be honest, I didn't join Megatron's little crusade because of the whole equal rights thing. Don't get me wrong, that would have been great and all, but I joined up because I thought those guys were tough, and they kinda are. I mean, Megs was a full-fledged gladiator that took on all sorts of guys in Cown, then he went straight up to Cybertron's higher up to take them on. I kinda like that, I like to pick on things my own size, maybe bigger. Till I realized that old Buckethead and his pals were picking on guys smaller than us. I might like punching stuff, but I ain't a bully. I'm not gonna go out of my way to kick the little guy like he would. So I left the cons and joined the bots. And yeah, like you, they didn't like the idea of an ex-con joining up. But, I worked my up and before I knew it, the bots and I became best buds. Now I'm an Autobot and a wrecker. Look, the point is kid, I get it, I know what it's like and everyone here's gonna be pals with you soon enough. But for right now, you can consider me a friend. Suzaku looked toward Grindcore in surprise, not just the fact this Autobot was a former Decepticon like himself, but he even appeared to have a sense of honor and wouldn't attack someone who was defenseless. In some ways, Grindcore reminded him of Dreadwing, even Yuffie thought the same as they both smiled toward him, along with Shirley. Thank you Grindcore. No prob. The Autobot smiled. And hey, you want some advice on how to get on everyone's good side like I did? You gotta. Wow. What do you mean by that? Suzaku asked. I mean do something that'll turn some heads. Grindcore clarified. Punch out a bad guy that's like 10 times your size, or something like that. Maybe save a few pals, worked for me. So, keep up the good work, Teamy. Teamy? Suzaku asked in confusion. But we're in different squads. So long as we both got this, Grindcore pointed to the Autobot emblem on his shoulder and the similar one Suzaku bore on his own uniform. I don't care if we're on different squads, we're on the same team. And anyone on the same team, is a teamie to me. Despite that, Suzaku still smiled. I'll be sure to remember that, he said before walking past him and into his room. Grindcore, thank you for that. For talking to him and understanding him. Yuffie thanked the Autobot sincerely. It's no problem. Grindcore smiled. Aw man. They all heard Millie's voice as she, Rivals, Kagaya, and even Rai came around the corner, the former two wearing standard Black Knight uniforms, while Rai wore an outfit similar to Todos and Oji's that was more dark blue in color as opposed to black or dark green. And I had the perfect speech planned. And by that, you mean you were gonna have me and Kagaya say all the mushy stuff to him, right? Rai asked with a raised eyebrow. Well, you are his cousins. It only means more if it's from his family. Millie put in. That's pretty devious. Grindcore commented with a joking grin. You sure you ain't a con? She may not be a Decepticon, but Millie here is a bit of a she-devil all her own. Rivals joked back. And her and Kagaya together have not made it any easier. Shirley said with mild dread, remembering all the harem talks they had regarding Lelouch, Suzaku, and Rai and all the women they knew. Bumblebee, Geass, Bulkhead, Smokescreen, Air Raid, and Sideswipe, even Sarah and Nunnally were among those that got a good laugh out of it, while the three boys just paled in comic dread. Seriously though, I'm grateful that all of you were able to become friends with Suzaku. Kagaya told the former members of the student council before turning to the former Britannian princess. Especially you, Yuffie. I never imagined a Britannian princess would be the one to help bring light back into his life. Thank you. She offered Yuffie a hand to shake, which she did with a smile. Oh, don't worry about that Kagaya. Yuffie smiled. Suzaku really is a good person deep down, even if he himself doesn't think so. And other people around here too. Rivals added, only to be elbowed by Shirley. It's been especially difficult with Colin. Rai added. She's nothing if not stubborn, but since they're on the same team, they need to get their issues sorted out before it becomes a problem on the battlefield. Actually, I do have an idea on how we can help with that. Millie offered. I've been meaning to pitch it to Optimus and Lelouch and see what they think. If nothing else, it'll get him and Colin to at least talk and communicate with each other since they're both on the same team and all. Really? You do? Yuffie asked in an excited tone. Millie, no offense, but your last idea involved helping Nina, Ratchet, and the other scientists with the ground bridges, which led to you, me, and Shirley getting stuck in that shadow zone. Rivals pointed out. We were lucky that we were still in the Ark when all that happened. Shirley added. They were able to get us out and nobody got hurt. But I didn't like the idea of being a ghost. I said I was sorry. Millie quickly stated. But, seriously, there's no special trick to this. I know what I'm doing here. If it means helping Suzaku, I'm willing to listen. Euphemia nodded. Can I get in on it? Please. Grindcore tried to put on a cutesy face, but the attempt only resulted in the teenage Black Knights laughing at his expense before Millie put on her usual devious smile. Alright everyone, listen closely. Here's what we're gonna do. Millie brought in Shirley, Rivals, Kagaya, and Euphemia as even Grindcore kneeled down to listen in as Millie whispered her plan to all of them. And that's what we came up with. Millie said as she, Rivals, Shirley, Euphemia, Kagaya, and Grindcore all explained to Optimus, Lelouch, Sarah, Nunnally, and Alita one on the Ark's bridge. Maybe that could work. Lelouch thought. Putting those together on a mission, albeit one that's less vital, could at least help them dialogue, so it would be a step in the right direction. Colin and Suzaku have already proven they can work alongside each other. Alita spoke. If they were to find a way to build a bridge, as you humans say, it could improve the Zero Squad's effectiveness in battle. But this could also mean that if something goes wrong on this mission, it might make tension between them even more difficult. Sarah put in. I've seen that kind of thing happen myself too many times. I'm sure they can find a way to work it out. Nunnally voiced her opinion. I know tensions between them are high, especially with Colin, but they want the same thing. I know they can find a way to work past it. Suzaku and Colin are two of our best soldiers. Optimus said. Cooperation is key to victory. I can indeed see this idea helping them to work past their differences, as well as the risks pertaining it. However, given the crisis we all face and what is at stake, it is a risk that we'll have to take. Nearly everyone gathered there all had smiles on their faces, as this could help bring their friends closer together and make it easier for them to work with each other. However, the moment was brought to an end as the main console on the bridge sprang to life with two coordinates located on the holo map. What's going on? Rivals questioned as the group got to the situation. Sounds like trouble. Good. Means it's time for punching. Grindcore smiled in anticipation. TAI, what is the situation? Lelouch asked as the holographic girl appeared before the group. 2 Yakan homing beacons have been detected. TAI revealed. I already have their coordinates. One is in the lower regions of the Himalayan mountains, the other is here in Japan near Mount Ontake. Ontake was one of the largest energon distributors back when Britannia occupied the country. Euphemia remembered. It wasn't as big as the Fuji operations, but it was still rather considerable. Which could mean it's a potential mine where more human slaves are kept. Alita assumed. A sound theory. I am detecting multiple Decepticon signals within the vicinity. TAI told them. Ontake is serious, but I'm more concerned about those 2 beacons. Lelouch stated with a serious expression. It means there are other Yakan relics here on Earth, and the Decepticons are already beginning to unearth them. He and Optimus exchanged nods and serious expressions as the Autobot leader accessed the Ark communications. Wait. Millie stopped them before they could assemble the troops. TAI, how much of our conversation did you hear? TAI had a smirk on her face as she responded. Enough to locate a small Decepticon weapons cache in the Oyama forest here in Japan. She said, giving them a not-so-subtle hint. I don't like the idea of involving the rest of you in a potentially dangerous mission, even if it's only as mediators between Colin and Suzaku. Lelouch told the group, but before they could protest, he continued to speak. Which is why we will be assigning other bots and knights to join you just in case you run into an enemy, but do not engage the enemy yourselves. Understood. Don't worry, we'll play it safe. Rivals assured. Thank you, Lelouch. Yuffie smiled as Optimus was able to access the Ark's communication system. Attention all personnel, we are deploying for multiple simultaneous missions. Optimus spoke throughout the massive ship. Wreckers and Black Dragon unit proceed to the ground bridge bay immediately and be ready for immediate deployment. You are being sent to a mine to not only liberate the human slaves, but also to locate a potential weapon. Zero Squad and Elite Guard report to the bridge, we have a special instruction for you. A ground bridge portal opened on a cliffside as the group consisting of Autobots Bumblebee, RC, Geass, Strongarm, Smokescreen, and Sideswipe, along with the Black Knights Colin, Suzaku, and Orpheus in their respective nightmares, with Yuffie, Shirley, Millie, and Rivals right beside them. The group found themselves overlooking the forested area that was known as Ontake, which appeared relatively untouched by Britannian forces pre-fall, or even the Decepticons post-fall. Wow, look at this place. It's huge, Sideswipe observed. It's actually rather beautiful, Yuffie commented. And surprising that it's still around since the rest of Japan is basically one big ghetto. Colin pointed out. That's because there's no energon out here for the cons to mine. Geass explained. If it ain't got the goods, they ain't gonna waste the effort. Kinda the only good thing that separated them from Britannia. RC said. The Decepticons aren't gonna go out of their way to destroy something just for the heck of it if isn't necessary. They won't waste resources, Orpheus added. Doesn't make them any less guilty. The gathered Britannians, even Suzaku, and especially Yuffie looked with grimaces. They all knew just how bad the old empire was, not just the fact that they almost destroyed Japan and any other smaller countries. They would go out of their way to humiliate them by stepping all over their heritage and traditions, just to advertise their superiority. Though the Decepticons were almost the same, they didn't need to unnecessarily wipe out any traditions just to further insult their victims, but it didn't mean they were innocent either. Okay, this just got heavy. Smokescreen said, trying to get everyone back on track. So, what's the plan? Right. There's supposed to be a weapons cache somewhere in these woods. Suzaku pointed out. Couldn't they have dropped us off closer? Rivals asked. There might be security precautions. Bumblebee answered. The cons don't like leaving their stuff out in the open. They left the Harbinger out in the open. Millie pointed out, which let us renovate the entire Ark. And gave us some state-of-the-art nightmares that would make Britannia jealous. Probably because they were too busy destroying Britannia. Orpheus pointed out. Finding this cache might be like finding a needle in the haystack. Euphemia pointed out. Maybe we should split up and cover more ground. Good idea. Strongarm agreed. I propose we follow protocol and have at least one veteran soldier per group, but at the same time, we shouldn't make our groups too small in case we run into trouble. Most of this group is veteran soldiers, including yours truly. Sideswipe said in a partially boasting tone, causing RC and Colin to roll their eyes in annoyance. So, who's going with who? RC's with me, Colin said immediately before glancing around at the rest of the team. And, I think we'll take Strongarm. Give a chance for a rookie to get her feet wet. Oh, I'm honored, ma'am. Strongarm said, addressing Colin as her superior. Colin, maybe you would also like, Shirley was about to make a suggestion. I know what you guys are trying to do, but it's fine. I don't need Suzaku holding my hand. Colin said with minor irritation. Colin, I'm sure that they're only trying to help. Suzaku tried to tell her in a reasoned tone of voice. RC and I have been a team since this whole thing started, we can handle ourselves. You guys figure out who you wanna be with on your own. She said irritatingly before transforming her Gurren into something resembling a red Honda with a Cybertronian-esque hull that made it slightly bulkier. She drove off into the forest, not even waiting for anyone else. RC, ma'am. Not that I'm questioning a veteran's decision-making skills, but does she even know where she's going? Strongarm asked the other fembot. RC shook her head with an annoyed sigh. Come on, let's catch up. She told her teammate as they both transformed into their respective vehicle modes before driving after her. So, Rivals tried to defuse the awkward situation the rest of them were feeling. Who's going with who? Suzaku, Sideswipe, you guys ride with me in undertone. Geass instructed. Millie and Yuffie too. OZ, Smokescreen, Shirley and Rivals, you guys are with me. Bumblebee also said, everyone maintains constant communication. Find the cache or make enemy contact and call for backup right away. Understood. Oz and Suzaku both nodded while everyone else silently accepted as the Autobots transformed into their respective vehicle modes, with Shirley getting into Bumblebee, Millie riding in Jazz's passenger seat, Rivals inside Smokescreen, and Yuffie inside Sideswipe. The groups drove off in opposite directions. Orpheus Byakuin rolled on the ground alongside Smokescreen and right behind Bumblebee as they moved through the forested area. So far, it doesn't seem like there's anything out here. Orpheus pointed out. Keep your optics peeled. Bumblebee told them. There's more to this than meets the eye. Trying to find a way to strike up a conversation, Rivals noticed the emblem on Smokescreen's steering wheel inside his vehicle mode. So, Smokey, you and Strongarm trained together in the same group. Yeah, but I didn't interact with Strongarm all that much. Smokescreen pointed out. Saw her a few times, but not that often. So, what was the Autobot Elite Guard like? What did you guys do? Shirley asked. It's only the most prestigious unit on Cybertron. Smokescreen commented with pride. They only accepted the best of the best. Though it wasn't much more than a boot camp by the time I joined. Were you ever in the Elite Guard, B? Shirley asked the scout. You seem like you'd fit right in. Bumblebee's radio played a laughing segment from a sitcom. Hardly. I was only a scout, a messenger. It's how I met Optimus just before he took command, and before I knew it, I ended up tagging along with him on nearly every other mission. So, what did you end up doing, Smokescreen? Orpheus asked, deciding to join in on the conversation. I got security detail at Yakin, guarding Alpha Trion during what turned out to be the final days of the war. Smokescreen answered. Wasn't he one of the original primes? Rivals asked in surprise. Yep. Smokescreen confirmed. I wasn't thrilled at first, thinking I just watching the back of an old bot instead of kicking con tailpipe. Hey, a little respect. Bumblebee told him. He wasn't just one of the original primes, he was Optimus' mentor. That took the three humans by surprise. He mentored Optimus, Shirley exclaimed. Yeah, he did. I even met Alpha Trion, Bumblebee answered. He might have been old, but he was really something else. Yeah, he was. Smokescreen added. The Big A turned out to be a great teacher to me too, and a true friend. One question. Rivals pointed out, looking a little awkward as he asked. If he was one of the original primes, why was he called Alpha Trion? Shouldn't he have been called Alpha Prime? Smokescreen chuckled. Funny, I asked him the exact same thing. He told me the Trion part came from the fact he was the third prime created. First was Prima, number 2 was Vector Prime. Optimus himself is amazing, but if Alpha Trion was his mentor, Shirley had an awe-inspired expression on her face. I wish we could have meet him. Well, I know he would have liked you guys. Smokescreen remembered his old teacher fondly as well. He always had a soft spot for the younger generation. At the same time, the vehicle's modes of the Gurren, RC, and Strongarm drove deeper into the forest as Colin appeared to be in the lead. Ma'am, may I ask you something? Strongarm asked Colin. First, don't call me ma'am. Colin replied. Makes me feel old. Just, Colin. My apologies. Strongarm quickly said. Colin, if I may ask, why did you have your nightmare adopt an alt mode of a land-based vehicle? Zero and the others who have their nightmares made from protoforms all chose air-based vehicle modes. I'm not questioning if or not it's effective, just curious. The Gurren can already fly, so I don't need it to turn into a jet. Colin answered. Oh, thank you for answering my query. Strongarm replied. Colin gave a sigh. Though she knew Strongarm was a capable soldier, she still acted like a rookie fresh from boot camp, which wasn't entirely wrong. But her willingness to follow protocol, while good-intentioned, doesn't quite fit with how chaotic and complicated a real mission can get. RC's motorcycle form rode up beside the vehicle mode of the Gurren as she addressed her partner. Colin, what's going on? What are you talking about, RC? You know exactly what I'm talking about. RC pointed out. Do I really need to point out the elephant in the room? There's an elephant nearby, Strongarm asked. It's a metaphor. RC quickly told the cadet. The redhead groaned in annoyance. We've been over this, I don't have a problem with Suzaku. Yeah, He worked with the Decepticons, and was even considered a con himself. Yeah, he killed his dad. Yeah, he says he's taking responsibility and now he's on our side to really redeem himself or whatever. Now he's part of the Zero Squad and trying to be all friendly, well whoopie-doo. No matter what he does, or how friendly he tries to act, he's no cliffjumper. I swear he. Cliffjumper. RC questioned, coming to a halt in her vehicle mode, and forcing the Gurren and Strongarm to halt as well before the blue Autobot transformed. That's what this is about. You think he's replacing Cliffjumper? Colin said nothing but gave a scowl, which all but confirmed it for RC. You think you're the only one who's not hurt by that, Colin? Cliff was my partner, too. He was my partner long before we met you. Colin's scowl faded into a look of sympathy as she briefly deactivated her transformed nightmare and stood up from a hatch at the top to look RC straight in the eyes. RC, I'm sorry, it's not you, she found herself unable to hide her pained expression as she couldn't even finish what she was saying with tears in her eyes. RC gave a small sigh of her own as her look softened as well. Colin, it's okay to miss him, I miss him too. But you know Suzaku's not replacing Cliff, nobody could ever replace him. I know, Colin muttered with a small sob. You can't keep this buried inside you. RC told her, I'm not saying to forget about Cliff, but, as hard as it is, he's gone, and he's not coming back. A saddened look fell RC's face as well before she got back to the point. Just because he's gone through, doesn't mean you can't find someone else, Cliff helped show me that. But it wasn't just him. I also ended up meeting Optimus, B, Bulkhead, Ironhide, Ratchet, Fix-It, and, I met you. Colin looked up toward RC as the blue Autobot smiled. And I know you got plenty more people too. Suzaku, he's not perfect, and I'm not saying you should be instant best friends with him or anything, but if you open up a bit, you might be surprised. RC reached down to place her large hand on Colin's back, which she appreciated as she looked up to her partner and older sister figure with an emotional smile. Strongarm, who had remained at the side for the duration of the conversation, transformed into her robot form as she spoke. Ma, Colin, I don't really have a whole lot to contribute to this conversation, but you can consider me a friend, if you'd like. Colin stifled a chuckle as she tried to wipe the tears from her eyes. Thanks, both of you. RC smiled along with Strongarm. However, the latter's smile faded as a device built into her wrist gave a small alarm, also drawing the attention of Colin and RC. What is it? RC asked. A Decepticon signal. Strongarm reported with a serious expression. 50 meters due east of our position. RC and Colin both got serious as well as the human teenager got back into her transformable nightmare to transform back into its robot form and ready its weapons, while RC primed her energon blasters, and Strongarm drew her crossbow-like weapon as they slowly made their way toward their target. Once they made it past the trees, they found their target, a single Decepticon who currently had his back turned. Right away, the two Autobots aimed their energon blasters while Colin aimed the Gurren Surger Claw. Hands in the air, Con. RC ordered. The Decepticon, whom none of them recognized, raised his clawed hands as he turned around to reveal his face with a seemingly sincere and friendly smile. Greetings, sisters. Steeljaw began. I'm so glad I found you. You wouldn't believe how many close calls I had since arriving on this Decepticon-infested planet. He noticed the red nightmare. Am I to assume you are a Black Knight? It's a pleasure. Quit acting so friendly, Con. Colin glared. What are you doing here? Let me guess, there's no weapons cache. RC assumed. Unfortunately, no. Steeljaw confirmed. But I had to do something since I lacked any means of contacting anyone. Decepticon, lower your weapons immediately. Strongarm ordered. Of course, you're confused, probably because of this. Steeljaw said, referring to the clawed Decepticon emblem on his shoulder. Despite the logo, I'm no Decepticon. I'm an Autobot, albeit undercover. Then why did we detect a Decepticon signal? Colin questioned, not buying it. I had to forge my signal. Steeljaw replied. This way I could better blend in with all the incoming Decepticons and enter this system without drawing too much attention to myself. Now that I'm here on this planet, I can finally end this charade. An undercover agent. Strongarm lowered her weapon slightly, but still remained cautious. RC. Colin glanced toward her partner, who seemed more than a little skeptical. Maybe we should contact the base, before we do anything else. Before RC could reply however, Steeljaw gave a slight chuckle. Still cautious, I see. Not what I'd expect from the ferocious Colin Kazuki. That really got their attention. How the hell do you know my name? Well, let's say we're both acquainted with a certain individual who has quite the grudge against you. Steeljaw said with a small sneer. Perhaps you'd like to be reacquainted. He glanced up past them to a certain Decepticon that hung in the trees, who aimed her left hand to shoot a strand of webbing that ensnared and pinned RC to the ground, causing Strongarm and Colin to turn around in surprise to see the smirking Spider-Con. Arachnid! Colin exclaimed, only to grunt as Steeljaw ran and tackled the Gurren from behind, causing it to crash into the trees as Strongarm tried to shoot at Arachnid, but she leapt from her tree to another as Strongarm attempted to call for backup. This is Strongarm. We're under attack, Decepticons. However, something fast and large suddenly rammed her from the side, sending her crashing through multiple trees and into a large rock, shattering it on impact. The one responsible for attacking her was none other than the smirking Thunderhoof. The Gurren quickly drew its MVS knife to swipe at Steeljaw, who parried it with his claws, but Colin quickly aimed her Surger claw point blank to his face and was ready to fry him when suddenly. Oh Colin! She heard Arachnid's taunting voice as Colin saw the one-eyed Spider-Con looming over the webbed RC, her hook close to her neck. You may want to hold off on that, lest you want to lose yet another partner. I happened to overhear how you lost good old Cliffjumper, you want me to send him some company. Colin glared as she practically gnashed her teeth, but she also looked through the Gurren's screen to see Thunderhoof walking onto the scene, dragging the unconscious Strongarm by the foot. Realizing that both her teammates were immobilized, and she herself was outnumbered, Colin had no choice but to surrender. With reluctance, Colin shut down the Gurren and stood up from its cockpit, her hands raised and a scowl on her face. Wise choice. Steeljaw smirked. Meanwhile, in another part of the woods, Geass and Sideswipe's vehicle modes rode alongside the Lancelot as Yuffie sat inside Sideswipe, with Millie in the passenger sat of Geass's vehicle mode with Undertone in the back. So, strong silent type, huh? Millie asked the silent Mini-Con, who only nodded in confirmation. Don't let that or his size fool ya. Geass commented. Undertone trained with me and Prowl under the same old bot back on Cybertron. Really? Cool. Millie smiled. Hey, how you doing there Mr. White Knight? Sideswipe asked Suzaku specifically. You've been pretty quiet. Just a lot on my mind. Suzaku said. Is it Colin? Yuffie asked, and before Suzaku could respond, Yuffie continued to speak. Suzaku, we all know that's what you're thinking, you don't have to hide it from us. Well, it's partly her. Suzaku began to confess. I know I've said it before, but I don't blame her for being mad at me. I'm still disappointed in myself by what choices I've made. I just wish there was a way I could make it up to her. Colin is probably one of the most stubborn people in the world, kinda like you. Millie said to him, but my grandpa told me that when two people are arguing, the best way to begin making it up is to take the first step. I'm sure Colin feels the same way, and maybe we can work something out. And for what it's worth Suzaku, I think you're pretty cool. Geass told him. You screwed up, but you're doing what you can to fix it. That makes you an okay guy in my book, too. Sideswipe added. Suzaku smiled. Thanks guys. Hello. Millie. Suzaku. Geass. Is anyone there? Shirley's voice rang through the comms. Shirley, what's going on? Suzaku asked with a concerned feeling. We just got an alert from Strongarm. I think she, RC, and Colin might be in serious trouble. Shirley alerted, causing the group of bots and humans to look surprised as well as worried. Himalayan mountains. Meanwhile, the group consisting of the Autobots Optimus Prime, Ultra Magnus, Elita 1, and Prowl, alongside the Black Knights Zero, Sarah, Cornelia, Ogi, Chigusa, and Monica in their respective nightmares, stood on a mountain top as they scanned the area for the source of the beacon they were tracking. I think I found our target. Zero told the group as he glanced down the mountain top to a rather large cliffside at least 200 feet below them. From the looks of it, they could already see 4 Decepticons at work. 2 of these Decepticons were recognized instantly, Soundwave and Knockout, the former having deployed Rumble to begin excavating the relic. The other two consisted of a tall and thin purple Decepticon, while the other was massive, almost like a giant metallic mole that walked on all fours and carried razor-sharp teeth in its massive maw. "What, in the world, is that?" Cornelia questioned, referring to the giant metallic creature specifically. "That is a Chompazoid," Alita identified. "A ravenous canid-like Cybertronian. They're known to consume almost all types of metals to further enhance their physical strength. They're incredibly dangerous." "And this other Decepticon?" Zero questioned. "From a mere glance, I would say that is Fracture." Ultra Magnus assumed. "A bounty hunter, one of Megatron's fiercest. And with Soundwave here too, this is going to present quite the problem." Monica commented. "Looks like they found the relic." Chigusa pointed out. "Hold on," she tried to zoom in with her nightmare's screen. "Is that some kind of hammer?" Optimus recognized it instantly. "That hammer is a sacred relic of the 13 original primes." "What?" Zero almost shouted, as everyone else looked more than a little surprised. "Seriously?" Cornelia also exclaimed. "Isn't that the opposite of a Decepticon doomsday device?" Ogi asked. "The master archivist of Yakin was Alpha Trion, one of the original primes." Sarah spoke. "So, am I correct to assume that aside from weapons of mass destruction, Alpha Trion also kept the relics of his fellow predecessors for safekeeping within Yakin's vaults as well?" "You assume correctly, Sarah." Ultra Magnus confirmed. "I've seen similar relics myself. And just like all those confiscated weapons, Alpha Trion must have launched these relics to keep Megatron from getting his claws on them." Alita added. "So, what kind of relic are we looking at?" Zero asked. "Arguably the most significant of all." Optimus answered. "The Forge of Solus Prime. For it possessed the power to mystically infuse raw material with working mechanisms. So, if we had that artifact, we could use it to pound any weapon we can dream of into existence." Monica said in an odd tone of voice. "We could outfit all our nightmares, possibly the entire Ark, with weaponry that could easily overwhelm the Decepticons. We might even be able to end this war in a week." Chigusa could already see the possibilities. Maybe even a new voice box for Bumblebee. Lelouch's eyes widened at the thought of that. Cornelia smiled in her brother's direction. "It's amazing that's the first thing that comes to mind for you, Lelouch. Let's not get our hopes up just yet." Alita advised the group. "First, we actually have to get it." "Leave that to me," Prowl said with a slight smirk. Strongarm's optics slowly opened as she regained consciousness. As she did, however, she felt her body was being restrained by something. Upon fully awakening, she realized that her body was pinned to a rock by a large amount of webbing, with RC almost completely cocooned and hanging upside down next to her, and Colin in the same kind of position, only being hung right side up. "Well, look who's awake," Arachnid teased as she stood alongside Steeljaw and Thunderhoof before walking toward RC and Colin in particular. "Long time no see, girls. You missed me. About as much as eating crap." Colin scowled before a smirk formed on her face. "Nice new look though." Arachnid hissed as she brought her hook close to Colin's face. "Maybe I could give you the same treatment." "Arachnid, I swear to Primus that if you touch her." RC scowled. "You'll what?" Thunderhoof questioned as he stepped up as well. "You know, I owe you bots and your meatbag pets big after bringing that mine down on me. And Act 1 can guarantee none of us can regret, Thunderhoof." Strongarm glared. "How's about I make y'all?" Thunderhoof was about to punch Strongarm had Steeljaw not pulled him back slightly by the shoulder along with Arachnid. "As entertaining as it would be to watch you two get the revenge you so crave, perhaps these three might be better used to us alive," Steeljaw suggested. "Think about it, if Colin and RC in particular are close at all to Zero and/or Prime, they might have sensitive information. And if not, perhaps a possible bargaining chip, to both the Autobots and their Black Knight allies, and maybe even Megatron. I can see quite the promotion for us if we turn in two highly ranked enemies." As Steeljaw continued to reason with his associates, the rest of the Autobots and Black Knights deployed for this mission watched and heard everything from a safe distance as they tried to come up with a rescue plan. Arachnid. Suzaku scowled, gripping the controls of the Lancelot hard, while Yuffie's face went pale at the sight of the She-Con, remembering what Arachnid had put her as well as Cornelia through. "That same Spider-Con you guys told us about?" Millie asked. "The one who killed RC's partner, Tailgate." Surely confirmed. That's her alright. Looks like Thunderhoof's still kicking too. Rivals observed. Guess he's a lot tougher than he looks. Sideswipe commented. I've heard the horror stories about Arachnid back on Cybertron. Smokescreen said. But who's that other con right there? Never seen him before. Bumblebee said. I think I have. Geass revealed, getting everyone's attention. Never actually met him, but I read some reports of a con who fits his description. Steeljaw, I think. And if those reports are anything to go by, then he's really bad news. Maybe worse than you think. Yuffie said. I've never met him before either, but the way he's talking, he almost reminds me of my brother, Schneisel. He always had a way of getting to people with words alone, and I feel like this Decepticon is almost exactly the same way. Should we radio the Ark? Call in for backup? Orpheus asked. Or maybe we can go in and take them out ourselves. Rivals suggested. I'm cool with that. There's only 3 of them. Sideswipe agreed. Bad idea. Bumblebee bleeped. We got too many unknowns with that Steeljaw guy, not to mention how dangerous Arachnid herself is. Plus, if we go in guns blazing, what's to stop them from knocking off our friends right there? Geass added. So, it's a hostage situation. Millie observed. We gotta get Colin, RC, and Strongarm out of there before we do anything. We'll need a distraction, Suzaku said. As much as I would enjoy snuffing out Arachnid once and for all, we can't go in recklessly, especially when it comes to her. Most of the group looked toward Suzaku in surprise. They all knew how much he was against the idea of killing, and even when he became a Black Knight and understood that taking an enemy's life might be an essential part of war, to hear that he actually wants to kill someone was more than a little concerning. But Yuffie understood clearly. Suzaku still blames Arachnid for the death of Dreadwing, something she herself blames the Spider Con for as well. And while she herself is against the idea of killing, she wouldn't mind not seeing Arachnid again either. I think I have an idea. Orpheus suggested as he stood up from his Byakuin's cockpit. The Decepticons, as their name suggests, often use deception to trick their enemies, right? Well, 2 can play at that game. He said with a grin as a Geass sigil lit up in both his eyes. Himalayan mountains. Rumble had finished digging away at the rocks and dirt that had covered the relic the Decepticon team had been tasked with retrieving, fully revealing the Forge of Solus Prime in all its glory. Now that's a big hammer. Rumble commented as Soundwave called him back, the evil Minicon returning to his master's literal side. Time to get a grip. Knockout smirked. However, Soundwave pointed up the mountainside as the Decepticons gazed up to see Optimus, Ultra Magnus and Elita 1 sliding down the mountainside above them, opening fire with their Energon blasters, forcing the Decepticons to split up and leave them vulnerable for the Black Knights to get the jump on them. Sarah, Monica, and Cornelia flew in from the right side in their respective Pink Akatsuki, Florence Nero, and Custom Vincent, ramming directly into the large Chompazoid to knock him down, while Ogi and Chigusa simultaneously flew in from the left side, with the Gawain Neuron transformed into a Cybertronian hovercraft that carried a tank-like attachment up front, with Chigusa's Vincent riding on top. She drew her Nightmare's assault rifle to fire magnesium bullets directly at Soundwave, while Ogi fired his hover tank's main weapon, causing an explosion that blew most of the Decepticons back. Thank you all so much for recovering the relic for us. Zero announced as the Shinkiro revealed itself, the Black Knight Nightmares and Autobots standing together and aiming their weapons at the Decepticons. We truly appreciate it. Autobots and their human pets. Fracture scowled. Knockout however smirked once he saw the Shinkiro, he even gave an impressed whistle. Nice new Nightmare up there, Zero. Most cons won't admit it, but you got style. Yo. The Chompazoid stomped forward. Name's Underbite. Any of you heard of Nuon City? No. That's because I ate it. I wouldn't boast if I were you. Elita advised. Stand down Decepticons and be spared. Optimus ordered. Why don't you tell that to them? Knockout pointed upward, with Lelouch being the first to glance up as his eyes widened in shock. Incoming. His warning came just in time as the Autobots and Black Knights scattered any way they knew how to avoid the devastating Hadron blasts from a hovering Nightmare being flanked by 2 others, with a 4th climbing up from the other side of the cliff to stand below them. All 4 had a similar black and purple color scheme, similar to that of the Nightmares from the Pluton organization in the Geass Order. The one on the ground resembled something of a centaur, a horse-like body, 4 legs, built underneath a humanoid upper body, while wielding a giant mace-like weapon. This was the Dark Equus. The one directly above that was a thinner nightmare with talon-like feet with long and large bladed winged arms. This nightmare was known as the Dark Aquila. The one in the middle that fired the hadron cannons looked identical to the Mordred, save for its darker color scheme, which had earned it the title of the Dark Mordred. Finally, the one on the other flank was the Tristan, which also bore the darker paint job, thus becoming known as the Dark Tristan. The Mordred, and the Tristan. Monica couldn't believe it. Anya. Gino. Hey Monica. Gino said with a grimace, confirming it was him in the pilot seat, wearing a dark purple pilot suit with the Decepticon emblem on his chest. Sorry to meet again like this. Targets identified. Anya, also wearing her own Decepticon pilot suit, said in an ever-stoic tone. Looks like we're about to test out these modified nightmares. The pilot of the Dark Aquila noted. Personally, I'm actually rather thrilled about it. The pilot of the Dark Equus also commented. Cornelia recognized those voices. Castor. Pollux. Oh Cornelia, it's been a while. Castor said from within his Dark Aquila. Guess it's a family reunion. Pollux stated as he piloted the Dark Equus. Why are you all working for Megatron? Chigusa shouted. You're Knights of the Round and Princes of the Empire. You mean the fallen Empire, don't ya? Fracture mocked. Don't blame them, it's not their fault. Knockout said. These guys got bombs in their nightmares that the boss will blow up if they take a step in the wrong direction. It's what they get for trying to take us on. Meet the Dark Knights. Every bot and knight narrowed their eyes or optics at the enemy. That's just cruel. Alita glared. But I shouldn't be surprised. Enough talk. Time for dinner. Underbite was the first to charge at the Autobots and Black Knights, followed by his fellow Decepticons and their own human allies. All except Soundwave, however. The silent Decepticon glanced back toward the Forge of Solus Prime and scanned the area with a vision that looked similar to infrared, which allowed him to see something that one wouldn't normally see with normal eyes or optics. An invisible Autobot attempting to take the Forge. Soundwave launched his tentacles from his chest at the invisible foe, who sensed them coming as he backflipped into the air to avoid them before landing to deactivate his cloaking field and reveal himself as the ninja bot Prowl. So much for stealth. Prowl said as he faced Soundwave directly. But then again, stealth isn't my only weapon. He drew a set of shurikens from his hand, which he threw towards Soundwave, who blocked them with a swipe from his hand, right before Prowl jumped to lash out with a flying kick toward the silent Decepticon. Optimus found himself attacked by the Dark Mordred as Anya fired her hadron cannons at him, forcing the Autobot leader to roll across the ground before opening fire. Though Anya brought up her Blaze Luminous shield system to protect herself from the blasts. Ultra Magnus ran towards Underbite alongside Alita 1 as he drew his hammer and had Alita leap on top of the mallet before Magnus threw out his hammer to send Alita flying over Underbite, while blasting his back with her Energon blasters before landing behind him. Her attack caused Underbite some irritation, which distracted him enough for Ultra Magnus to slam his face in with his weapon. Monica flew into the air to clash the Florence Nero's MVS blade against that of the Dark Tristian. Just like old times, huh Monica? Gino said, trying to find some humor in this otherwise bleak situation. Gino, you don't have to do this. Monica pleaded. You and Anya can come with us. We can help you. You heard Knockout. I can't. Gino said reluctantly. I wish I could. I'm sorry, it's not personal. He fired his nightmares/harkens at her, forcing Monica to fly back and gain some distance. Fracture squared off against Ogi and Chigusa's nightmares before he deployed a duo of rockets from his shoulder, which knocked down Chigusa's Vincent before they transformed to reveal themselves as his Decepticon mini-con partners, Air Razor and Divebomb. The two mini-cons chuckled evilly before they leapt at the recovering Vincent. Ogi would have run to help her, but he was quick to bring up the Gawain Narian's armored arms to block the blade attack from the smirking Fracture. Sarah fired her Akatsuki's arm rifle at the fast-flying Dark Aquila before it shot directly at her at super speeds faster than any normal jet. Fortunately, the Shinkiro appeared by her side as Zero attempted to fire its central cannon at it. However, Castor flew directly up to just barely avoid it before Zero transformed the Shinkiro into a black Cybertronian shuttle that flew after the Flying Nightmare for a high-speed chase around the mountains. While down below, Cornelia rolled her Vincent back to avoid the devastating smash from the Dark Equus, massive mace weapon. Cornelia attempted to fly above him and shoot, but the Pollux' reaction speed proved to be more than Cornelia could anticipate as it reeled itself up on its back rear legs for higher reach to slam the custom Vincent with its main weapon to knock it down. Knockout, however, appeared to be simply sitting on the forge and watched all the battles unfold around him. Now I could go and help them. But, after so many scratches and skids done against my paint job, I think I'm more content to just sit back and enjoy the show. Oyama Forest. So, we're agreed then. Steeljaw told his cohorts, still standing by their captives. We'll get into contact with Megatron and we can use our prisoners here to get a rather high position, and we'll let him and whoever else he chooses handle the interrogation. I'd rather do the interrogating myself. Arachnid brandished her hook. Of course, but wouldn't you rather use your talents in his service and get more than just revenge? Steeljaw offered with a sneer. Oh. And what would you believe I'd have to offer? A familiar voice spoke out as a towering individual stepped out into the clearing, someone that caused Colin to gasp as Arcee's and Strongarm's optics widened in shock. The Decepticon trio was certainly surprised as well, clearly not expecting to meet their leader like this. Lord Megatron. Steeljaw made a formal bow, followed by Thunderhoof and Arachnid. Just the Decepticon I've been meaning to see. What is your name, soldier? Megatron questioned. Steeljaw, my lord. He introduced himself. And I'm sure you're already familiar with my associates. You mean, my interrogator and former mine operator. Megatron corrected, glaring at Thunderhoof in particular. EYYU, that wasn't my fault. Thunderhoof exclaimed. Those dang meatbags. Silence. Megatron bellowed, causing Thunderhoof to bow his head in submission. I do not want your excuses. However, as the Decepticon leader continued to address the Decepticon trio, a small group of unarmed Black Knights, and a white Mini-Con, silently made their way behind the rock where Strongarm was webbed to. Pissed. She, Colin, and RC all heard as they glanced, however way they can, in the direction they heard the sound originate from, which was revealed to be from Millie, who was standing alongside Shirley, Undertone, Rivals, and Yuffie. That is not Megatron. Millie whispered as she pointed to her eye to give a secret message, something all three of them recognized. That's right, RC recalled. Oz's Geass lets him disguise himself as anyone he wants. He must be using it to hide himself and his nightmare, pretending to be Megatron. As Strongarm and Colin also understood, the Mini-Con and his 4 human companions each took out a bladed weapon of some sort and quickly got to work cutting away the webbing that bound Strongarm to the boulder. They all understood the plan. Strongarm was the only one they could reach. All 5 of them could quickly cut her free, where she'd then quickly free Colin and RC, all the while rest of their friends quickly circled the perimeter in an attempt to surround and corner the enemy. I'll ask only one last time. Megatron stated. What is it you want? Only a chance to prove myself, a chance for all of us to prove ourselves to your cause, my lord. Steeljaw said. Each of us have failed you in some way, which is why we've marked ourselves. He showed the slashed Decepticon emblem on his shoulders, as well as that on Arachnid and Thunderhoof, which bore similar slashes. As a sign that we accept our failure and are willing to atone, if you would allow us. Too bad you won't get the chance. This came from the Autobot Geass as he leapt onto the scene, aiming his sonic blaster, followed by Bumblebee, Sideswipe, Smokescreen, and even the Lancelot Albion as they quickly surrounded the Decepticons. But this was nothing compared to the surprise they got as the freed Strongarm gave a fierce kick to Steeljaw's face and knocked him down into Thunderhoof and Arachnid, allowing Undertone the chance to leap up with a blade and cut down RC's bindings as he slid down the cocoon with his blade, allowing RC to free herself as well as Colin. Once freed, Colin quickly pulled out a remote and pressed the button. In less than a second, the Gurren Satan 8 elements rolled up onto the field automatically as RC quickly ran toward it, and placed Colin inside, allowing her to grip the controls and fully activate the nightmare. Steeljaw, Arachnid, and Thunderhoof all recovered to find themselves completely surrounded from all angles. Hands in the air, cons. Sideswipe ordered. Or don't, we got a clear shot either way. Smokescreen said as he aimed his Energon blaster. But how? Steeljaw stuttered, as he turned to Megatron. However, he was more than surprised to see the visual completely fade to reveal the Guka Byakuin, with Orpheus at the pilot's seat as he aimed its own weapons at it. "We've been tricked," Thunderhoof exclaimed. Steeljaw growled. "Clever." Arachnid glared at everyone circling her, but her eyes set upon a certain pink-haired girl that stood by the Lancelot. "Yuffie, did you miss me? I know I missed you." However, before she could make a move, the Lancelot aimed its Varus weapon directly at her face. "You are never going near her, again," Suzaku warned. "Nice to see you too, Suzaku." Arachnid snarled. "How do you cons like them apples?" Rivals gloated. "Getting show up by Autobots a bunch of meatbags. Sucks to be you." However, Steeljaw ended up chuckling, much to everyone's confusion. "What's so funny?" Sideswipe questioned. "You seriously didn't think we'd take such a risk of capturing Autobots and or Black Knights without some kind of fallback in case things go wrong, did you?" Steeljaw smirked as he glanced to Arachnid with a nod. Arachnid broadcasted a signal only she could use. 2 seconds later, the entire ground around them began to shake as a massive metallic fist erupted from the ground behind Bumblebee, Geass, and Smokescreen, with another behind RC, the Gurren, and Strongarm, and a third behind the Lancelot, Undertone, Yuffie, Shirley, Rivals, and Millie. These were revealed to be the hulking forms of the Insecticons as they climbed their way up from under the ground and surrounded the heroes. "Insecticons." Colin scowled. "That's just freaking dandy." "Scrap." All the other bots and humans muttered at the same time. Himalayan mountains. The battle for the Forge of Solus Prime appeared to be a bitter stalemate for the Autobots and Black Knights against the Decepticons and their human allies. Ultra Magnus and Elita 1 continued to battle Underbite, having a hard time getting through his tough hide while they did their best to avoid getting eaten or crushed. Fracture proved to be quite a match for Ogi, even with the Gawain Narian's advanced weapons. While Air Razor and Dive Bomb proved too quick for Chigusa to even land a hit on. Prowl threw almost everything he had at Soundwave, with the silent Decepticons' defenses almost impossible to penetrate. Gino and Monica continued to clash in the air with the Dark Tristan and Florence Nero respectively, but both seemed reluctant to hurt the other. Cornelia attempted to maintain her distance from Pollux and his Equus, else she'd be crushed by its overly large weapon. All while Knockout continued to watch the show, with an entertained smirk on his face. At the same time, Zero in his transformed Shinkiro continued to give chase to Castor in his Dark Aquila, shooting rapid-fire energon blasts at it, but the Dark Aquila proved to be quick and agile enough to avoid most of the blasts. Who would have thought Zero had what it takes to be in an actual fight? Castor commented. "I would have thought you were just a strategist who hangs in the back." "Who says I can't be both?" Lelouch smirked as this was all according to his plan. Gunfire was shot in the Dark Aquila's path, courtesy of the pink Akatsuki piloted by Sarah, who had spent the time of their chase analyzing its flight path to determine where and when to strike, all per hers and Lelouch's plan. The Dark Aquila had lost its stabilization and was sent hurtling toward the mountainside again, specifically toward Knockout, who could only scream as he couldn't dodge the crashing Nightmare, sending them both skidding across the ground and rather close to the cliff's edge. The Dark Mordred had been knocked back against the side of the tallest mountain as Optimus kept it pinned down. "Anya Alstrime, though you are a knight of the round, you are also a child." The Prime attempted to plead and reason with the girl inside. "We do not have to fight, neither you nor Gino can serve Megatron. Abandon your nightmare and come with us, we can help you." Inside, Anya looked with about as surprised as one would expect from a stoic and emotionless girl. "Why is he trying to reason with me? We are enemies." She noticed her hands were shaking. "I'm shaking. Why? Do I want to fight? Do I want his help?" She looked in surprise to see the white Geass sigil form in both Optimus optics. "Let us help you." Optimus tried to raise her own hopes and courage. For a moment, a pair of white rings formed in Anya's eyes. I want his help. I want help," Anya stuttered. However, the white rings quickly turned red as someone else took control of her body. "But I don't," Mary Ann exclaimed as she shot her nightmare straight up into the air, taking Optimus with her. Once they were high enough, Mary Ann shot a point-blank Hadron blast at Optimus, sending him falling and crashing back down on the ground. "How dare you?" Mary Ann sneered, gritting Anya's teeth. "It's your fault. If it weren't for you, Megatron would have never discovered Ragnarok." Charles would be alive, and Lelouch and Nunnally would be with me. She was ready to fire a fully charged Hadron blast and end Optimus, but was caught off guard by a concentrated blast that was shot in her direction. She quickly activated the Dark Mordred's shields, but the blast only needed to graze it before shattering them entirely. "Get away from him," Lelouch shouted with anger, having fired the Shinkiro's central cannon. Though he intended to only disable the nightmare as he didn't want to kill Anya, it did little to quell the rage he felt from someone attempting to murder his father figure. "No, Lelouch, he's not the one for you," Marianne thought in panic and rage. "I'm your mother. You are supposed to be with me." However, this also left her vulnerable for Sarah to fly in and strike with her Akatsuki's katana as the Dark Mordred, on Marianne's instinct alone, brought up its armored arms in a desperate attempt to block it. If I can disable her nightmare, then maybe. However, Sarah suddenly felt a familiar presence as her Geass sigil on her forehead began to glow and shine multiple colors. Even Marianne's eyes widened as both of them, and even Anya, saw a series of memories flooding through each of their heads. Memories of Lelouch and Nunnally in their childhood, and even that of Marianne's in her younger years. "No, not UCC, not now." Marianne stuttered as she felt herself losing control of Anya's body, with Anya feeling like her head was about to split in two. "What is this?" Anya said with a gasp. "So, that's where you've been hiding," Sarah muttered in shock as she desperately slashed her Akatsuki's katana to cut at the Dark Mordred's float system, sending it falling to the ground. "Anya, no!" Gino exclaimed as he and Monica looked in shock, prompting the Dark Tristan to fly and cover the downed Dark Mordred as Anya herself appeared unconscious from the impact. The crash was enough to draw Fracture's attention, while also allowing Ogi to see the Forge of Solus Prime was unguarded. He quickly transformed his nightmare into its hover tank mode and fired a point-blank shot at Fracture to send him crashing into the mountain's side. "Master, no!" Dive Bomb exclaimed as he and Air Razor were quick to try and help him, only to end up getting shot at by Chigusa in her custom Vincent. The Gawain Narian quickly made its way to the forge before transforming as Ogi attempted to pick it up with his nightmare as he also made contact with the Ark. "Ratchet, I need a groundbridge stat. I got the relic. We need." However, a groundbridge portal opened up from behind the Gawain Narian as a purple energon blast struck it from behind, causing Ogi to drop the forge as he was knocked down. "Konami!" Chigusa exclaimed in shock as everyone, Autobot, Black Knight, Decepticon, and Dark Knight watched Megatron himself step out of the portal. Immediately, the heroes all aimed their weapons at the Decepticon leader. Nah, Megatron aimed his fusion cannon at the downed Gawain Narian, causing the heroes to lower their weapons lest the enemy leader kill their friend and deputy commander, who glared up at Megatron as well. The Decepticons and Dark Knights all converged on their leader as Gino helped the Dark Mordred up, with the unconscious Anya still inside, and bring it closer toward Megatron, who picked up the forge himself. "This day is full of surprises," Megatron began. "First, a relic of the Primes here on Earth, and I even get to meet some old friends. Ultra Magnus, and even dear Ariel." Magnus and Alita both glared hard at Megatron but said nothing in response. "Ariel," Lelouch wondered aloud as he glanced at Alita. Megatron even noticed the purple Vincent, recognizing the pattern. "Is that you, Cornelia?" The former princess turned Black Knight scowled, which appeared to be the confirmation he needed as he walked backwards toward the active ground bridge. The Decepticon cause is once again indebted to the generous contributions of Euphemia Lee Britannia. He mocked one last time before taking the forge with him into the ground bridge, followed by his Decepticons and enslaved Dark Knights. Once the enemy was gone, all the Autobots and Black Knights regrouped as Chigusa rolled her nightmare towards the Gawain Narian. "Konami, are you alright?" she asked urgently as Ogi pulled his Black Nightmare up and opened up the cockpit. "I'll be fine," he assured as a scowl formed on his face. "Optimus, Lelouch, I'm sorry, I didn't. Ogi, this wasn't your fault." Lelouch tried to assure him. "We all should have seen Megatron coming. But now he has the forge." Cornelia muttered angrily. "I don't even want to think what he could do with it. While we would have put the Forge of Solus Prime to valuable use, I do not believe we have reason to fear Megatron's possession of it," Optimus said. A smirk formed on Chera's face. "Let me guess. Only a Prime can use it, right?" "That is correct," Ultra Magnus confirmed. Alpha Trion himself confirmed it. The Forge, and other similar relics can only be accessed by a Prime. Still, we should do whatever we can to find a way to obtain the Forge ourselves. Lelouch stated. Even if Megatron can't use it right now, we all know just how far he'll go to get what he wants. I have a feeling he'll find a way to use the Forge somehow, it may only be a matter of time. Oyama Forest. Sideswipe drove as fast as he could in his vehicle mode, with Shirley, Rivals, Millie, and Euphemia all screaming as a roaring Insecticon bashed its way through all the trees, trying to get to its prey. However, the massive beast felt a series of blasts from Strongarm with her Energon crossbow, causing the monster to turn its attention towards her as she ran backwards to gain some distance. Smokescreen ran along the side of the second Insecticon, shooting his Energon blasts at it. However, the beast reacted quick enough to deliver a punch to Smokescreen and send him crashing through multiple trees. But suddenly, the Guka Byakuin came in from behind to strike its back with an electric surge from its right arm device. This caused the Insecticon to roar in pain before it turned around to chase the white and black nightmare. Arachnid leapt from tree branch to tree branch, blasting Energon from her left palm at RC, who ran and rolled to avoid each blast before returning fire with her own Energon blasters. Arachnid then dislodged her hook hand, which connected to the rest of her arm via an extendable chain, which she threw out toward RC and wrap around both her arms. But this worked to RC's advantage as she pulled down with all her strength to pull Arachnid right into a powerful kick and send her crashing across the ground. Thunderhoof attempted to charge Geass, who leapt over him as the antlered Decepticon smashed through a large boulder. As Thunderhoof turned around to charge him again, Geass used his Energon grappling hook to zip his way up towards a tree and avoid the charge before jumping down to land his feet onto Thunderhoof's face. However, Thunderhoof was able to quickly pull back his feet and kick Geass in the chest to send him rolling back. But this left the Decepticon vulnerable for Undertone to leap down from behind, slicing at him with a pair of dual blades. Ah, EYYU. Thunderhoof scowled at the Mini-Con, which also gave the recovered Geass a chance to grab Thunderhoof with his grappling hook by his right antler, allowing Geass to zoom right into his face, feet first. Bumblebee fired his Energon blasts at the charging Steeljaw, who proved too fast and nimble, to avoid each blast before rushing B to slash at him with his claws and knock him down. However, as Steeljaw went in for another slash, Bumblebee quickly drew his katana to block and parry the slice before delivering a kick to Steeljaw's face and knock him back, allowing Bumblebee to go on the offensive and strike back. The Lancelot rolled backwards, using its MVS blades to block and parry the strikes from the third Insecticons. However, Suzaku found himself backed into a literal corner as the Insecticon loomed over him. Hey, Bug! It turned around to see Colin lunging her Surger claw right at it and blasting a point-blank wave of radiation to fry the face and most of its front side, allowing Suzaku to finish it off with both his Lancelot's swords in its back and through its sparks. Thanks, Colin. Suzaku told her. Everyone else is in trouble. Colin replied as they saw the states their friends were in against their enemies. However, her eyes widened slightly. Hey Suzaku, remember when Rakshata and Lloyd told us that our nightmares and rays had those energy wing things? Yeah, Suzaku recalled. Well, what was that theory they had about using that as well as our main weapons? She asked with a smirk as she showed her Surger claw for emphasis. Suzaku's eyes widened, realizing where she was going with this. But we haven't even tested it yet. This is the test. Our friends are in trouble, and we're going to help them. So, are you with me or not? Colin exclaimed. Suzaku looked to her in surprise. She was actually asking for his help, though it sounded more like demanding. He could tell what it really was underneath her ferocity. This was enough for him to smile with a determined expression. Let's do it. Both nightmares shot into the air as Colin contacted her teammates via the comms. Guys, you might want to clear out. It's about to rain fire. RC glanced up to see the Gurren and Lancelot already high in the air. Suddenly, both nightmares produced a pair of glowing energy wings from their backs, bright red wings from the Gurren, and bright green ones from the Lancelot. Fall back. Everyone fall back, RC exclaimed to her fellow Autobots and Black Knights. She, Bumblebee, Strongarm, Geass, whom Undertone returned to, and Smokescreen all transformed and joined Sideswipe, who was still in his vehicle mode and had his 4 teenage passengers still inside, as they and the Byakuin all rolled away from the area as fast as they can. "Where are they going?" Thunderhoof exclaimed as he, Steeljaw, Arachnid, and the remaining 2 Insecticons regrouped. Steeljaw was the first to glance up to see the Gurren and Lancelot flying in a large circle at high speeds thanks to their respective energy wings. They were flying so fast that 2 rings of red and green energy began to shine in the sky as the Gurren aimed its Surger Claw, and the Lancelot did so with its dual Varus rifles set to the Hadron setting, all 3 weapons pointed directly downward. The wolf-like Decepticon's eyes widened in borderline horror. "Move! Move!" He quickly transformed into his vehicle mode and tried to drive away with Thunderhoof right behind him and Arachnid riding on top. But it was too late. The Varus rifles and Surger Claw opened fire with a series of rapid-fire energy blasts and a continuous blast of radiation respectively. It literally rained down firepower over the whole area as the 2 Insecticons were the first to get caught in the resulting explosions and blown to pieces. Steeljaw, Thunderhoof, and Arachnid were also caught in the blast and blown away as well. Explosions rang across the whole area as the entire section of the forest was reduced to a small burning wasteland. Once it all finished, the Lancelot and Gurren landed as their power was almost completely drained. "Well, that was something," Colin muttered, rather surprised by the results herself. "Yeah, let's agree to never do that again," Suzaku said. "Unless we're up against some really dangerous enemies." "Agreed," Colin nodded. That caught Suzaku by surprise. Wait, did you just agree with me?" "Yeah," Colin replied with a small chuckle. "I did, weird right?" she said before she actually laughed, followed by Suzaku who laughed as well. "Hey, you guys." They heard Smokescreen call to them as the rest of their team joined up with them before they transformed into their robot forms and allowed the humans to step outside as Colin and Suzaku stood up from their open cockpits. "That was awesome. Heck yeah, you should totally do that again," Rivals shouted. "Raining fire. Freaking sweet," Sideswipe also exclaimed with a laughing grin. "Yeah, that was pretty cool." Even Orpheus smiled. "You two should work on that move." "Oh, big time," Jazz agreed. "Might even give the Big M some trouble. A bit excessive for my taste, but I agree it'll definitely come in handy in the future," Strongarm said with a smile and a nod. RC, Shirley, Yuffie, and Millie however didn't say anything save for genuine smiles shared by the brunette and pink-haired girls, while the blonde and blue fembot having knowing smirks toward Suzaku and Colin respectively, something that caused Colin to blush and look away while Suzaku smiled genuinely. However, Shirley glanced past them to see something that made her look in surprise. "Hey, everyone, come here for a sec." She quickly ran toward what she spotted, followed by everyone else. It turns out that Shirley had spotted a rather large hole, one that was recently dug to avoid the blasts. But what really got their attention was the sound of a wolf-like howl coming from down below. All smiles faded as they knew exactly who was down there. "I have a bad feeling we'll be seeing those 3 again," Yuffie said. "I hope so," RC commented with a glare. The Ark. Both teams returned to the main vessel. As they began to report their respective findings with each other on the bridge, Colin had brought Suzaku to the hallway just outside the bridge to speak in private. "Hey, Suzaku, Colin stuttered before sighing. I'm not really good at apologizing but, I'm sorry for acting like a bitch to you." No, I deserved it." Suzaku raised his hand, showing no hard feelings. "I was selfish, irresponsible, and even dangerous. I could go on and on about justice, or what I thought was justice, and doing things the right way, but really, I was just looking for a way to ease my conscience about what I did to my father. You were right to be mad at me. But, now you're actually making the effort to change," Colin said. "And that wasn't the only reason I gave you a hard time." She looked away with a guilty expression. "When you were put in the Zero Squad with me, I thought you were replacing Cliffjumper." That got Suzaku's attention. He was one of the first to break through my shell, him and RC. They were more than just partners to me, more than friends even. He felt like family. And when he died, it felt like I was losing my brother all over again." "Colin," Suzaku spoke with sympathy. "I was never trying to replace Cliffjumper. I know, but I just wanted something, or someone to lash out on and I thought since you were with the cons, you'd fit the bill." Colin said with shame in her voice. But I was just being petty, and I'm sorry. Suzaku put a hand on her shoulder. I understand. Back when I was with Britannia, and working for Megatron, aside from Yuffie, Dreadwing felt like he was my only friend, even called me his brother. When he sacrificed himself to save me, Yuffie, and Cornelia, it felt like a shot to the heart. I know how it feels to lose someone you're close to. And I think I can understand what it was that drove you to rebel against Britannia like your brother did. Colin smiled slightly as she looked away. Honestly, I feel like you, Cliff, and Naoto would have gotten along really well. Yeah, maybe. Suzaku admitted with a smile of his own. So, friends. He offered his hand to shake. Oh, what the hell. Colin shook his hand as she smiled as well, before it turned into a smirk. But if you try and hug me, I'm gonna punch your lights out. Suzaku smirked back. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. They then proceeded to walk in separate directions. As Colin walked away, she happened to run into RC and Millie, both of whom were smirking at her. What are you two looking at? Nothing. Nothing at all. RC replied. Colin then shot a small glare in Millie's direction. If you try to say that we're couple material, you'd better be prepared for the beating of a lifetime. Oh, don't worry, I won't say anything. Millie assured before a playful grin formed on her face. 'Cause we all know you're in love with Lelouch. That caused Colin's face to turn red. Oh yes, she definitely is. RC teased, causing Millie to laugh before Colin attempted to chase them with her face even more red. I'll kill you. At the same time, Suzaku had round a separate corner to find both Yuffie and Kagaya waiting for him. How long have you two been there? He asked almost playfully. Enough. Kagaya smiled. I'm really happy you and Colin were able to talk things over, Suzaku. Yuffie told him before a sad look crossed her face. And, I miss Dreadwing too. A look that Suzaku shared himself. Yeah, so do I. Well, I know how you two can honor his memory. Kagaya offered. By living your lives to the fullest. Ya know, if you asked me a year ago, I never thought I'd see my cousin marry a Britannian princess. But now that you're both Black Knights, I'd say you two make a darling couple. That caused Suzaku and Yuffie to both blush as Kagaya began to walk away. Please do take care of my cousin Yuffie, else you'll have to answer to me. She smirked before disappearing. Is she always like that? Yuffie asked. No. Usually, she's worse. Suzaku replied before he looked at Yuffie with a smirk. Before she knew it, he gave her a kiss on the lips, causing her to look in surprise. Correct me if I'm wrong, but back in Kyushu, didn't you command me to love you? I don't think I need a command for that. Yuffie looked to him with emotional eyes as she felt her heart skip a beat. Suzaku, he smiled one more time before pulling her into another kiss, one that she returned this time, wrapping her arms around him and vice versa. The Nemesis workshop. Megatron had pounded with the Forge of Solus Prime onto an empty Energon storage container, but all he appeared to do was flatten it, as opposed to create a powerful weapon of mass destruction. It doesn't look like a Fortress Maximus-grade nucleon shock cannon. Knockout observed alongside Soundwave. It is as I suspected. Megatron said. Without the power of a Prime to activate it, the Forge is merely another addition to our tool chest. He said as he placed the Forge of Solus Prime onto the table. One we must, nonetheless, keep as far as possible, from the reach of a Prime. Seems like one step forward, but two steps back if you ask me. Knockout said. I mean, yeah, we've got numbers on our side, but the bots and BKs have grown quite a bit, enough so that our Dark Knights, and guys like Underbite and Fracture are put on the defensive. Even with Onslaught and the Combaticons, it's not going to be an easy fight. It would seem that in addition to strength and numbers, I require another Decepticon who is not only cunning but reliable as well. Megatron observed as the door to the workshop opened. Excuse me, Lord Megatron. They all turned to see a certain Decepticon enter the room. But I couldn't help overhearing. Steeljaw said with a smirk. And this at the end of Season 2 Part 1 of this What If. Hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.